a playlist original.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 91 of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson. How's it going, buddy?
It's going wonderfully. I cannot believe we're on episode 91 already. We are slowly but surely
Like,
getting closer towards the next milestone, and I'm loving it.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It seemed like this was gonna be further away, and then I was like, well, look at our schedule. We've been like cranking out like
Yeah,
episodes like pretty like aggressively. But
the
what's
team's
funny
been
is like,
busy.
yeah, what's funny though is that when I was talking to playlist last week when we had our meeting, they were like, we love that there's just so much content, so they're not upset about it. They're like, yo, this is great. You get it to us in a timely fashion. You let us know like what needs to be edited and where, and that's all we really need. Like you just keep creating good stuff for your show. So they're very proud of the show in general. So, but yeah, we've been plowing through these things like really
Yes,
fast.
giving the listeners lots to tune in and check out, which is awesome. But yeah, no, I love. We got another episode that we will be recording after this one, and I cannot wait to chat about that one either. It's just been a great last couple months. Talking about movies and stuff, and things are going great. And I'm loving it.
Yep. And so like we're still figuring out what we're exactly gonna do. I think one idea, since Owen's gonna be on that episode with us,
Right.
since he is Owen's opinions on Instagram, I think I'm gonna grab like two or three of some of our like bigger stories that we covered and kind of get his take
Okay.
on one of those because he doesn't really sit in with us usually. I know the Harry Potter TV series thing might be a really good one because he's a Harry Potter fan. He likes the movies, so I'd be
Sweet.
curious to kind of hear like what his thoughts are on that. I actually heard a lot more feedback on that. More people were
Okay.
hoping that were more people were hoping that I'd be a little bit more like upset by the notion that they're doing it so fast, and like I because I said I was intrigued by the idea. I still don't
Right.
think it's necessary, guys. I'm just like intrigued.
Yeah, I very much like. I think I was picking up what you were putting down when we were talking about that. Was this
Yeah,
last week or the week before? I'm honestly kind of like, brain
actually,
doesn't even.
we did the last 2 weeks because like at first it was just like a rumor, and then the next week they
Yes,
confirmed that they were
you're
going to
right.
do it on Max
Yeah, I didn't get the
release.
impression that you were like over the moon about it either. But I can't lie either. I honestly feel like the approach that they are thinking about taking with the whole one season per book is intriguing. But
Yeah,
agreed, it doesn't really need to be made. But if they're gonna do it, that is an interesting way to do it. But
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
no, it's been a hot topic for sure for the last couple of weeks. But and we got another
Some similar story.
yeah, similar story we'll get to in a few minutes, which
Which
I
I'm
cannot
not
wait to chat
too
about.
I'm not mad about it in the sense of like, oh, don't ruin something that's so good. Or like I'm just
Yeah,
like, why? Whatever.
that's a good
It
point.
it
Yeah.
makes sense when we get to it. You'll be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah,
Yes.
I didn't feel it in a kind of way that I did with the Harry Potter stuff when I was like, well, I mean, it's already great. Like, why mess with it? This
Exactly.
thing is
It's
not.
far from great.
It's far from great. And boy, did I give that particular franchise a chance. Like I saw every single one of them, like thinking they were going to get better, and I was
Okay.
fooled every single time that they're just not good. Yeah, they're awful. You'll know what we're
Yeah.
talking about as soon
Exactly.
as we start.
Yeah, we'll come back to this. We'll bookmark this for a few more minutes so people know what we're talking about if they haven't already. But we got on that note of the last couple of weeks, we got some catching up to do. We had a really busy couple of news weeks, so we just breezed right through into that stuff. But tell me a little bit about what you've been up to the last week. What have you got in? Anything significant stand out to you? Anything you wanted to chat about?
Yeah, yeah. Like Jackson said, we had two very busy news weeks, which is why we skipped the whole like, hey, let's be friends and like talk about what we did this weekend. So we skipped all of that the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I'm trying to. Well, I'll start with the most recent one. I saw Evil Dead Rise on Thursday with my brother.
Nice.
What's
Tell
funny
tell us
about
your
it?
thoughts on that.
It's really good. What's funny about seeing scary movies now with my little brother is that when he was younger, he couldn't watch them at all. Like if I was watching one in the room and he happened to walk in, he would run right out. So
I still have buddies that are like that to this day.
so it's been cool like in the last few years. So like he's gotten used to them and they're just like, all right, I can watch him. He still kind of watched this one like hoodie kind of like up a
Still,
little bit.
hey, if he's not a huge horror guy, I'm impressed for him for making it into the theater because this is, by all accounts, looks horrifying. So,
Yeah.
props to your brother.
So like it was a movie that I think I didn't find scary and like, makes me jump kind of way, scary
Right.
sense, but it left me kind of uneasy. Like there's some stuff that you see in it. I mean, I thought like the 2013 film was pretty gory. There's some gory stuff in this one too, where I was like, oh wow, they really go in there.
Oh,
And there's so much like imagery that like sticks with you. And that's why I
Okay.
think that, like,
I
usually with
like the
horror
sound.
movies, yeah, usually with horror movies, I don't like gore for the sake of having gore, but this was done in a way that feels weird to say, but almost felt like art. It really feels like adds to like what's going on in the movie. I Alyssa Sutherland, who plays the mom who gets possessed. Everyone's good in the movie, but she was like my
The
MVP. Like
standout,
she,
eh?
yeah, I started following her on Instagram and Twitter after the movie came out, and you could tell that she really enjoys doing stuff like this. She had a lot of fun doing it,
No
and
doubt.
she was 100% committed. And it's good too because even though the movie's fairly short, they did a good job of setting up the relationship between the two sisters and like building kind of like you know a rapport between them, and also showing that like their relationship is a little strained because like the
Hmm.
one sister who's like the main character, she's hanging out with like a rock band, and they basically call her like a groupie for most of the movie, and you can tell
Okay.
that that's created distance between her and her sister. But she also loves her sister's kids, so there's also that element
Right.
too. And then like, and of course the mom loves her kids as well, which makes what
Mm,
happens even more like you care a lot more because this you've built like it's not even that long, maybe like 10-15 minutes of setup where you have to like get to know them. But
mhm.
the writing does a good job of like establishing their relationship, and the actors did a good job selling it. So when
Selling.
things
Okay.
yeah, so when things do go awry, you really do care that. And like we've seen this countless times with these movies, like Evil Dead doesn't really give you like all you don't really get like a happy resolution sometimes, even though you might want
No.
one. So
Right.
I like goes there. I thought it did a really good job of paying homage to even like the original movie. There's like some
That's
little,
what I'm most excited for.
which is cool, and the changes setting was also a welcome change. It was really, I mean, they actually make things feel very claustrophobic in this like high rise apartment, and they do a good job of setting up how they're stuck there. Like, I
Okay.
thought I won't tell you what it is, so you'll see it. But like,
Right.
because I was like, well, they have to make some reason as to why they might be like won't be able to easily get out, and
Right.
they did a good job setting that up too. But yeah, I thought it was. I think you're gonna like it. I love that it was like a breezy 90 something minutes. It wasn't too long. Uh,
No, it works. I love everything about this movie on paper.
yeah, and like you know, I'm gonna read some of you guys' box office predictions, but I was very close. It actually did a lot better than they thought. I think the original estimate was like 23 million, and it ended up making like 24.5 million this weekend, which
Nicely
is
done.
a little less than what the remake opened to, but it also had a bigger international rollout than the remake did. Actually
Okay.
made $40.1 million globally. And this is a $19 million budget movie that was originally going to go to HBO Max. So I think if you kind of heard that story, Bruce Campbell said that Sam Raimi is like basically developing this like Evil Dead, almost like Bible, where he can have like a new movie every few years. So I think these early box office returns, we're probably going to get a few more of
It's
these.
looking good for that. Okay.
And also, if I mean, I get I mean, maybe there is a need to change directors and stuff just to kind of get like a different style, but Lee Cronin did a really good job directing this. It's very, for something that was made for $19 million, it's a very stylish looking horror film. You feel every ounce of like atmosphere in it and like the
Okay.
kind of world that he's creating. I thought it was really good. Seemed like most people in our theater really enjoyed it. There was a lot of wincing. There's some moments where I was like, oh,
Oh,
I almost couldn't look at the screen. There's like a
I can't wait.
moment with a cheese grater that I was like, no, I will never look at a cheese grater.
Yes, I saw cheese grater photos on some social media with no context, but like related to the Evil Dead movie. I was thinking some. It might have even been you for all I know. Something about I'll never be able to look at this the same
Yeah,
again.
I posted one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was you. Yeah,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
okay, I can't wait to see what that is all about. I have some horrific guesses in my mind, but as of recording, I'll be seeing this tomorrow night at 7:15, and I will message you directly after, let you know what I think. I cannot wait. I can't wait to be grossed out and freaked out and just to be back in the Evil Dead sort of universe
Yeah.
again because I really hold that franchise dearly. So I'm glad that that Lee Cronin at least seems like he at least kept up to Fede
Yep.
Alvarez in terms of like his interpretation. So it seems like
Yeah.
they've been getting good creatives on board to continue this legacy, which I mean, love to hear that.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too is that I guess in the US, the Evil Dead grossed like $2.4 million in the US. This movie in its Thursday night preview grossed $2.5 million. And I was like, that it
Wow.
already outgrossed the original movie its entire run in one preview night, which I thought
Right.
was pretty interesting. That shows how far that franchise has come. Like how far, like, you know,
Yes.
like the Evil Dead movies were, and up until the remake in this one, weren't huge money earners at all. I mean, they were
Right.
relative to budget. Like the first two, of course, made money back because like they were so cheap to make.
Right.
Army of Darkness was a notorious flop, but I mean that was because Sam Raimi went full Sam Raimi and made it a comedy. A lot of people I saw on Twitter, that one guy was saying like, I'm so tired of seeing Army of Darkness at the bottom of everyone's Evil Dead rankings, and some people were saying, you know what, it's not like we think it's bad. I just think that we prefer the more like horror centric movies rather than
Right.
what they did with Army of Darkness, which is went full comedy, which is why I think people like the second one so much. I saw that like when I put the poll up on Back to the Blockbuster and G Reels, Evil Dead 2 got like majority of votes as like their favorite one. And I guess it really, I guess it does kind of blend the best of both worlds, where it's like
a
horror
medium
movie
between the first and Army of Darkness, right?
yeah. So I can see why people like that. It's not. I personally like the Evil Dead more than the second one, but I also don't think there has been a bad one. Like I don't like love Army of Darkness because it's not really my jam, but I don't think it's bad. It's just like I prefer what they did with the other movies.
Yeah, I'm thinking I should not like. There's a movie to watch before this new one. I'm sure it would be the 2013 reboot, but I've seen it so many times that I just don't feel I don't have that urge to go back to it because I think I just watched it last in October. But I've only seen Army of Darkness once, so I'm wondering if like maybe I should probably get that in tonight after we're recording, just to kind of get myself back in the mood. But it's not going to be anything I don't think like tonally or stylistically similar to like this new one. I wouldn't expect, but still being back in Evil Dead's. But yeah,
well, it's good to see that the franchise, again, looking at a movie. This is like the fifth one now that they've done in this franchise,
and the show.
And the show, like all these like horror franchises. When you talk about this one with Scream, also like they're all making like all this money, and they're like 5-6 movies in. Usually, I know like, back in the day, that used to be like you used to not look too fondly, especially horror movies, when it's like Friday the 13th, like 6 or 7. You're like, oh no, like I mean, I have a special place in my heart for a lot of those sequels that.
Agreed.
The later ones, but I think by the time you were getting to those numbers, most people were like, "Oh, this has gone far enough. Why are they still making them?" Now the reverse has happened. Like it was crazy. Like I feel like it's not really a stigma so much anymore. That like, oh, you're on like your 6th one, and
because it's just been done so much more frequently these days. Like to your point a little bit, like we are living in a time where so many older properties are being brought into this contemporary landscape, and some are crashing and burning horribly, and some are being updated and taken in a completely just weird direction. So it's nice to see like a couple of these properties standing out, still resonating with audiences in today's age and making money. It's nice to see. I got a special place in my heart for these ones like Scream and Evil Dead that are still resonating with audiences all these years later, because it just goes to show how good these originals really were.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll even throw in like, I know people feel some kind of way about the David Gordon Green Halloween trilogy, but I mean, I even appreciate that coming back and making money, and like kept that franchise like, or made it viable again, like to the point where like, all right, these can still make money. Like it still sucks to me that the last like Nightmare on Elm Street we got was that remake, and I miss Freddy Krueger on the big screen. I don't think we're ever going to get Robert Englund back, because he's always said that he's too old to do it, and like he's kind of put that to bed. I think with how Freddy versus Jason was the last one I think that he was a part of, and then of course I hope when all the legal Friday the 13th stuff's figured out, I don't mind seeing Jason back on the big screen either, if like that should happen. I know we're getting a Peacock TV series, which is cool, but like
I forgot about that.
But even like some of the other ones have pivoted. Like we don't have like Child's Play movies playing in theaters right now, but Chucky is doing very well on TV, and that's cool to see. So I'll be like, I want to see some of the old horror titans come back. Like I want another Nightmare on Elm Street. I want another Friday the 13th.
Right. I want them done right, because like I am like more of a sucker for like this original type of like horror movies, but then again, like I don't know that we're gonna get an era like we did in like the late 70s through the early 90s of these original slasher icons. Like I don't know. I'd like to think that it's still possible, but that era in particular and what came out of it, like from horror movies and the icons that came out from those years in particular, I think might be a once in a lifetime or once in a historic kind of like phenomenon, you know what I mean? But some of them you like gotta see again, get revamped. But then you get ones like Hellraiser, which I don't know about you if you saw that Hulu. I think it was Hulu's last year.
Yeah.
And stuff like that comes out, and it kind of makes me wish that we had just let sleeping dogs lie.
That franchise is frustrating
It
because
is.
the first movie is one of those horror movies that every time I watch it, I think it gets better. Like I feel like
Agreed.
it has a very adult, serious tone to it that you appreciate more when you get older.
Yes.
And the fact that it doesn't shy away from being that, I think is really interesting. And I will even give credit a little bit to Hellbound Hellraiser 2, which I don't think is as good as the first one, but at least it feels like the same DNA
I
as
gotta
the
see
first
that
movie.
one. I haven't seen the second one yet, but
It,
dying to.
it's cool because it takes place mostly in the Lambent configuration, so you get to see all of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Right.
And again, like much like the first movie, even though they have more screen time in the second one, Pinhead and the other Cenobites are not the lead villains. They're just there to like kind of guide you through uh
Okay.
this kind of
Right. It's
hellscape.
the stepmother
Yeah,
is like the queen of the underworld in the second one,
yeah,
is she
yeah,
not? Which is
yeah.
interesting.
And it's this other doctor guy that resurrects her.
Right.
He's the one that wants, yeah. So they're the villains, but of course, when you have someone that looks as cool as Pinhead and the rest of the Cenobites,
Mm,
they're gonna be the face of that franchise. But
absolutely.
I remember showing a friend the first one. He was like, "Man, those dudes are barely in it." I was like, "Yeah, they're like in the beginning for a second, and then they come when like she opens the box, and then that's it. Like and then they're in
At
the
the end.
climax.
Yeah.
In the climax,
Yeah.
yeah. But you get just enough of them where you're like, all right, you're satisfied. The rest
Exactly.
of them after the second one, like I can't. They're all bad.
They all look
Like,
like B tier trash, honestly. Yeah. I
yeah,
don't know if I'll ever visit them, but still like the iconography behind that series and like just how Pinhead looks amongst even all these bad sequels that he's in. Like he is just such a badass horror icon that I just love
yeah,
him.
yeah. Some of my best horror movie lines come from that movie. Like when he's like, spare us your tears. It's like it's a waste of good suffering. I'm like, it's
That's
so,
a great line.
it's so
You're right.
good.
There are so many awesome lines.
It's so good. I'm like, oh, this guy's down. All right, picking up
Yeah,
what he's putting down.
exactly.
What about? I mean, I know you saw talking about a movie where I'm like, hey, my movie was a breezy 90 something minutes. The one you saw was not a breezy 90 something
Quite
minutes.
literally double that. It was not in any way a chore, but definitely like an odyssey, like very much like reflective of the story in the movie itself. It was absolutely a journey to get through. Beau was Afraid, which I saw yesterday as of this recording. So that's how we spent our weekends. Like I was curious which one I was going to see first. Like I knew I would see Evil Dead Rise and Beau was Afraid like very
Yeah.
soon after each other, but wasn't sure until the day before which one I would go to see with my buddies. But so I ended up seeing Beau was Afraid. And like it's weird. It was one of those movies. I'll just preface by saying, so my buddy Cam, who like he's my movie guy, and my buddy Thomas too. We were it was the three of us went to go see it. He put it a great way. He's like, we came out. He goes, I liked what I saw, but I don't really know what it was that I saw, and that's very much how I'm still feeling. Like since then, I've gone and like dissected a little bit more, watched a couple videos, people putting some stuff together because it is a very thought provoking a movie that needs definitely a lot of like dots connected. And I feel much better having like I guess a sense of what I saw afterwards. But without spoiling anything, if you're a fan of Ari Aster, I can't help but feel that you will like it. I gotta say though, it wasn't as horror focused as I
Oh, it was gonna be.
thought it would be. And I kind of like I hope that he goes back to horror eventually because I think he did a great job with all the different genres that he mashed together for Beau was Afraid. But and there's some shots in Beau was Afraid that you can tell this guy has worked on horror movies before. Like he has Ari Aster lends his signature touch through lots of scenes in different ways. But I think that's where he's at his best. By no means is this to detract from Beau was Afraid, but I don't feel like initially coming out of the theater that it was his best. I still think that belongs to Hereditary. But again, that's not to say that Midsummer or Beau was Afraid were not
Up to
just
par.
at that bar as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But definitely a watch. I have plans to go see it again with another friend probably later this week. And I
Oh, you're
gotta
gonna
say,
see
I
it
can't
twice.
wait. Oh yeah. And it's
Oh
one that I
man.
think it's like in a weird comparison, it's kind of like a Nolan film, especially his like most recent ones, where it kind of demands a second watch
Yeah.
to really piece everything together. And no better place to see it than on the big screen. It was absolutely a great. There's some laugh out loud moments. Great to see it with a big audience. I had a blast seeing that on Sunday. Unfortunately it was a really nice day over here in Fredericton. It was like I don't remember. It was like up to 16 or 17 degrees, like Celsius, sunny. But I spent 3 hours in the dark theater. I emerged and I could not see. I was blind when I got outside again. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It was great to spend my afternoon watching it.
That's how I felt after Owen and I saw on Wick because like we were in the
Yeah,
theater for
same,
three
similar.
hours and then we came out and the sun was like shining. I was like, oh well, it's half
Yep.
a good chunk of the day in a dark movie theater, but we still got to enjoy the day out afterwards. But yeah,
Right.
I feel you. I was supposed to see it with a friend. I think this week. And I'm thinking it might be like one of those movies. Might have to like dedicate the episode to it after we
I
both have seen it.
I think that's a great idea because it's definitely one. There's enough in it that it deserves its own
Yeah,
episode. We would probably just be blabbering about it for way too long. So, in a sense, I'm kind of glad you hadn't seen it yet because I'm sure we would just be bouncing back and forth
like
talking
more.
about this
Yeah,
one. I can also say that I absolutely see why it was so divisive. It's definitely not going to be for everybody, obviously, as it's shown since it's been out. Even there were some sequences, I guess, like for me, where I wasn't like not on board, but I kind of was like, maybe this movie could be a little bit more refined. Does it need to be 3 hours? No, I don't necessarily think so. But I had fun like during the whole thing, and every minute that Joaquin Phoenix is on screen is a treat. He was fantastic.
nice.
Yeah, so
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I know I'm not gonna. I mean, I still don't understand. I mean, it's cool if you don't like it. You don't have to watch it ever again. But this whole like, I've seen it more and more. I guess that now that it's expanded into more on the more
oh,
screens,
I know what you're
like
saying now. Yeah.
the people who don't like it are just like it's irresponsible for A24 to like give him that much money to make something like this, and like almost like a personal attack against the director too. I'm like, all right, it wasn't your cup of tea, so like never watch it again. Like even if you wanted to write a bad review of it, that's fine. You got a bad review of it, but like I've seen people like continuing to drag it like since they've seen it
Right.
like maybe a week ago, and it's like, all right, we get it, you didn't like it, so like
Again,
move on.
well, yeah, exactly. Again, like to your point, absolutely. I would encourage people to, review it objectively, how they, share their experience, whether they liked it or didn't like it. That's not a problem. But by saying like you cross a line and start talking about like A24's like responsibility to cinema goers and who they shouldn't and lend
Yeah,
money to and how much that's where I lose. And I agree. I'm sure you feel the same way. Like I don't
yeah,
buy into that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But it's art,
I
man.
agree. It's
That's what
true.
it's there for. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. And as far as any other watches, I mean, you guys know now because the episode's out, but I did watch Prometheus for our deep dive with Owen.
I
Uh,
watched that as well, actually, too. After
so yeah, actually
fine.
I did watch it with Owen. I mean, like with the show with Owen. But yeah, that was a fun rewatch, and it was fun to talk about the movie with him and like kind of. I'm also glad that we a little differently because I actually looked up because I always heard that some people think there's so many unanswered questions, and I think that can look that way. I mean, especially at the time it came out because you didn't know that Alien Covenant would be around the corner, and
Right.
like but it was interesting going through some of those questions that people have about Prometheus and kind of bouncing that off of him. I still love it. Like it's still, I mean, it is. I mean, like I said in the episode, I think it's like a little over an hour until like real shit happens.
That's
But
right.
it's so interesting the build up that I don't care that it's like a slow burn. I think I am, since I have time tonight. I need to rewatch Alien Covenant.
I
That
was
was one
about
of the
to
things
ask you, yeah, if
that was
you're
one of the
going
things that
to.
kind of came up while we were talking about it. And I was like, I couldn't like I remember liking it, but I was like, I do remember liking Prometheus more, but I was like, I have to watch it again. I know, and I know they're a little tonally different too, like
Very,
because
they don't even really feel related, to tell you the truth. When was the last time you think you would have seen Covenant?
like 3 4 years ago.
Oh, okay, so you're in
Yeah,
for a good
yeah,
rewatch
yeah,
then,
yeah,
because
yeah.
as I mentioned before, this is like Covenant's kind of like it's weird. It's kind of a comfort movie for me. So it's one that I've revisited. I'll watch Covenant happily and not feel like obligated to watch Prometheus before, which I'm sure I'm not alone there because
Yeah,
they feel like distant cousins as movies. Like obviously it's related,
right.
but all I'll say like is like, yeah, just leave your expectations of like a Prometheus follow-up at the door and go in expecting like typical alien xenomorph muckage. And I think you're way more likely to
Yeah,
have a good time. That's all
yeah.
I enjoy that movie for. But I actually do have a really soft spot for Alien Covenant, which diehard Alien fans might, I think, probably are more prone to not like Covenant. Or maybe
Yeah,
diehard Prometheus fans, I guess, would make more
I
accurate.
think so, but that's because Ridley Scott did what people wanted him to do. I mean, like it was just like Prometheus was too talky and cerebral, so he's like, all right, then
And not enough aliens.
yeah, and I'll give you full
Should be.
aliens and carnage, and then they were like, yeah, but okay, well that was too much.
Maybe people, yeah, I think people started to realize that maybe they liked Prometheus more than they thought they did and wanted these questions answered. And he kind of like nips that in the bud quite early
Early,
on.
yeah, yeah, I do
But
remember that. Yeah,
I'm okay with it. I would still like to see a good follow up to Prometheus, maybe a movie that would depict like what happened in between them. I doubt we'll get it, but I would still be on board for it. But I'm
yep,
all about the xenomorphs. They're like my favorites.
alien
Honestly,
design.
some of my favorite like characters, I guess, if you will, in sci-fi, probably in cinema alone. So if they're on screen and it wouldn't matter if it was directed by Michael Bay, I would probably eat it up.
Oh no.
Honestly, I just love them.
Man, that you would only have Alien Carnage if it was directed by Michael
Exactly.
Bay. If it
That's
was
what I'm
directed by
saying.
Michael Bay, there'd be like no
Yeah.
plot. No plot whatsoever. Yeah, and then other than that, I also watched or rewatched X2 because we are going to be talking about that
Yeah.
after we record this episode. Won't reveal anything here, but I
Yeah. Leave it.
still fucking love the movie. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
So you
I'm
guys listen
excited
to
for
that
that
next
chat.
episode. It'll be fun. Yeah, it was a fun rewatch. That one, I don't know, holds a special place in my heart. That one because I love
Mhm.
X-Men. I grew up like that was the comic
Right.
book I collected other than Spider-Man. So
Okay.
like, so
Cool.
I was a big X-Men person. So to have like a really good one that early, like 2003, I was like, all right, we're in a good spot as X-Men fans. So that was it's
Yeah.
pretty
Not to,
nice.
so was the original trilogy a question? Just kind of gonna expose my ignorance here. Were they all directed by Bryan Singer?
So Bryan Singer directed 1 and 2, and then Brett Ratner directed the third
Right.
one because
Right.
Bryan Singer was directing Superman Returns, and because X2 did so well financially, like it made more money than the first one. The Fox wanted to rush the third one, which
Ah.
is which
Yeah,
explains
we know
why
how that went.
which
Yeah.
explains why that movie is hot garbage. But yeah, they really want to rush it to get it out there. And
Okay.
even though that movie technically made money, it just wasn't well received. The third one,
No,
yeah,
still to
which is
this day
why
is lambasted by everybody.
yeah, which is why I think they went like the First Class route when they eventually kind of redid it again. And I actually, talking about good comic book movies, I actually think First Class and Days of Future Past are both very good X-Men movies. Apocalypse, not so much. It's like okay, it's not as bad as
Mm.
people make it out to be, but it's not really good either. And then Dark Phoenix is in its own level.
Is it as bad as they say?
So here's the good thing: the cast is great. I mean,
Right.
I have really good actors in that movie. That's what I love about the newer ones is that they really did cast it well and they got really quality actors to play those parts.
Yep.
I'm just pissed off because like the Dark Phoenix saga is like one of the biggest X-Men stories. It's probably one of the best well written ones from the comic books, and they fucked it up twice now. And in the third movie they kind of shoehorned it into a 90-minute movie that also is dealing with the whole like mutant cure and all that stuff. So you have like two big plot points kind of fighting with each other. And
And
then with
only
Dark
90 minutes, man. That is
yeah,
beyond me.
with Dark Phoenix, okay, you have a whole movie dedicated to it, but it's like if they were really going to do it right, they would have to do like the Infinity War in-game treatment where
Yeah.
Phoenix is good at first when she first gets her powers, like she's helping like save the universe and she's like on still like she's still very much Jean, but she's like powerful. And then what ends up
Mhm.
happening is that power becomes too much for her and it kind of consumes her, which makes her evil. So
Right.
you really need the whole build up to that, and you can't really do that in one movie. And
Definitely not.
that's been the problem with how they did it in The Last Stand, and that was the problem with how they did it with Dark Phoenix. So
Maybe we'll see that tackled again in the future and revamped. Like maybe they'll incorporate that in the MCU somewhere down the line, if that's even still a thing in the next,
I really hope they do. I mean, because the fact that
starting to bring the X-Men in, right?
the animated series, the fact that they did that better than two movies is crazy to me. But they did. The animated series from the '90s actually did that Dark Phoenix story justice, even though they had to change certain things because it is a kid show. But they
Right.
still did that story justice, and somehow two movies. And one of the guys who wrote it, who was a writer on Last Stand, he also wrote and directed Dark Phoenix. I was like, so you've done this twice now. You had
Oh
time
my.
you had time to get this right.
Okay, well, who's giving this dude the opportunity to mess it up again after he did
Well,
that? I didn't realize that.
so Simon Kinberg's been involved in like some good X-Men movies, so I can
Right.
kind of see, okay, like you don't
Okay.
always screw it up, but yeah, and then they
Well.
made him a director on Dark Phoenix, so it's like,
Ooh.
like all
Well,
right,
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I guess I believe in second chances and stuff, but maybe they'll be careful or cautious who they approach to do that again down the line, should they ever choose to, tackle that storybook
Yeah.
line again.
because it's a good story. And I think it would do really well, like with a proper like
Yeah.
movie adaptation. But yeah, we'll see. Now that
Yeah.
I'm sure we're getting the X-Men. Still might be like a few years, like a couple years, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know because we still have to get the Fantastic Four first, and there's a lot of MCU stuff coming. I love X-Men so much, and I'm glad they're under the MCU umbrella. I just hate that it's been this long without like, not even that long, but like it's gonna be that long since we see them again on the big
Right.
screen. Because it's like we'll talk about it with X2. There's like some really interesting themes and stories that you can tell with those characters because it really feels like it has a lot of real world kind of motivations with like all of his themes about like acceptance and tolerance and like
True
all
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like it can go a little deeper than most like I think superhero comic book movies.
Right.
So yeah, I'd love to see those characters again. Hopefully soon. I mean, I guess we're getting Hugh Jackman in Deadpool 3, so he'll be back as Wolverine.
Right.
So there's that. But I
Yeah.
want to see all my other X-Men back
Yeah,
on the big screen.
exactly. But even as not much of an X-Men watcher, I hadn't seen many of the films. I am a huge Logan fan, like of the movie and the character. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, even though when he announced his retirement after Logan, I was like a little bit bummed, but I'm glad to see that we'll get a little bit of a glimpse of him in Deadpool 3,
Yeah.
which I can't remember when that's slated to come out.
I think it's 2024, so next year.
Oh, okay. So they must have,
Yeah.
have they
I think
filmed
they're
it, or
starting filming it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman's is such a badass dude. Like nobody will ever replace him, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, someone I think put on Twitter. I was like scrolling randomly, and there's like name a character from a movie that you can't really see any other actor playing. And like, I'm not saying that no one else can't play Wolverine, but it's hard for me to
Right.
picture anyone else doing it like in live action form.
Agreed.
The way
And-
that he has, because I have my little squabbles about like, or even though I love the second movie and I like the first one too. I don't love that all the focus is primarily on him. Like he is clearly like the lead
The
or
lead,
the
yeah.
like and I get that it's because the character is popular outside of like casual moviegoers know who Wolverine is. So I totally
Exactly.
understand that.
Marketing decision for sure.
But even though I have that issue, there's no taking away how like good and charismatic that guy is in that role. Like you can tell that he loves playing it and he owns it, and he just
Yes.
embodies everything about that character, and that he's a fan on top of all of that. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of that plays into why he played that part so well, which I think it's a hard act to follow when they they decide
Yeah.
tap into the Wolverine well again without him.
Needless to say, whoever is cast in that role in the future has some big shoes to fill, and I would
Yep.
not want to feel that pressure. But kudos to whoever lands that hypothetical future role.
Yeah.
A tall order.
Taron Egerton was one of the people that has been fan cast a lot. Because Wolverine in the
Okay.
comic books is like a shorter guy. He's not like Hugh Jackman's actually pretty tall for Wolverine.
Okay.
But a lot of people have like done some really cool art designs where Taron Egerton looks like he could play it. I think even he's like,
okay.
oh well, I feel like that time's kind of passed now. Like he would love to do it maybe, but like, it's one of those things that I think got fan casted more than like I don't know if there was like genuine interest, or there might have been at one point to have him take on the part. I think most of it is like fans. It reminds me of like the John Krasinski, like Emily Blunt, Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman thing. That is more of a fan
Right.
thing, which is why Emily Blunt has finally just been like, I don't want to do a movie like that. Which is like, I don't want to be in it. So like, stop trying to like make it happen.
Make it
It's not
happen,
gonna yeah. But yeah, like you said, tough act to follow. I don't know how they're gonna top Hugh Jackman. Well, at least we don't have to worry about that anytime soon because we get him in Deadpool 3.
Exactly.
That will probably be his
That's
last
right.
hurrah for sure. But
For sure, yeah.
this will be fun to see him back in the role.
Definitely.
All right, so now we got some news to
Yeah.
cover. Where do you want to
What do you
grab
want to hop
from
into here
first?
for? Well, I was gonna
Oh,
say, I was
great,
gonna
great,
pitch.
my-
Did you want to break that? Did you want to go down trailers, or did you want to go down news first? I'll leave it up to you.
You know what? We can do the trailers first.
Sure. All right.
Right.
Well, we want to start off strong with we got a second Fast 10 trailer. Just
Yes, we
dropped,
did.
like, I think as of recording about 4 days ago. I just saw it for the first time maybe 40 minutes ago before we started recording, and so I have a fresh take on it. What did you think about trailer 2? I gotta say, I'll preface by saying I think I liked it more than trailer 1.
Oh, we're different. So
Oh,
I
okay.
thought I saw a good trailer. I think the first trailer did a better job of like, I mean, as serious as these movies can get. I
Mm,
think it tried to show that it wasn't going to be all like spectacle. Like they were trying to do something a little bit more like character driven. That's what
Okay.
I got the impression from that first trailer. This one seems to be like, all right, let's just showcase a lot of like balls to the wall action, which is fine. I mean, that's what the
I agree with
franchise is
that.
built.
Exactly.
That's what the franchise is built on. So I totally get it. Someone made a really good, funny comparison where they said that like, I forgot who said it, so I'm sorry. I would love to credit you with saying it, but they were like, so Jason Momoa is basically like the Joker of the Fast and Furious movies. That's what he's coming off as. He's like very like over the top and like but
Yeah.
he also feels like a credible villain, at least from the trailer. Like he seems like a legit threat.
I think he's having a blast playing the
Looks
role
like he's having a
too,
lot of
which
fun,
I couldn't
yeah,
help
yeah.
but just be like, all right, yeah, sure, I'm on board. He looks like he's a good choice for the villain.
Yeah, and I was trying to pay attention Like, did we see more of like other characters? They showed a bit more of Brie Larson.
A
Not a lot,
couple
not a ton,
shots,
a
yeah.
couple shots. I know that she is playing Mr. Nobody's daughter, who was played by Kurt Russell, and like
Right. I didn't even know that until right now.
they. So I know there was a lot of speculation that like she might be related to Brian somehow, or hey, she still might be. I don't know. That what I've heard is
Mhm.
that she's Mr. Nobody's daughter. I'm so surprised they. I mean, maybe I'm not, because maybe Universal Pictures probably knows that Brie Larson isn't like incredibly beloved by everyone. I feel like they, with someone like her, you have a name like her, I thought she'd be in the trailer more. But
Honestly, I'm
could
curious as to
be,
why she's not been, plastered all over the place. Even in the second trailer, you do
yeah,
not get a lot of, you get literally a couple seconds worth of her.
yeah. There's a looks like there's some stuff with some weaponry. I think I saw that, her
Yep.
holding a gun,
So
uh,
brandishing an assault rifle, looks
rifle,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
And she looks pretty badass from like this little bit that we've seen. They showed more Jason Statham and Sun King a little bit. So that's going to be an interesting union, because he did kill him.
I know. Like I kind of honestly, I kind of sighed when I saw that they glimpse each other like they're preparing to take down. I think a room full of guys. Like they're definitely gonna have a fight sequence together. We're on the same side, and
Yeah,
they kind of give each other a look in the trailer of acknowledgement. And I think it's supposed to like highlight this. I'm assuming this must have been like one of probably, if not the first time they've really shared an actual like meaningful scene together since because he
yeah,
only came back in the last movie, right? And I
yeah.
think it's
And then
addressed.
and at the end of the stinger at the end of that was that he showed up to where Jason Statham was staying, and they see each other, and then that was it.
Right.
So this will be the most like time they've shared since
Right.
his fake untimely death.
Yeah. So
you know,
weird seeing them like that they're promoting that, but
yeah,
whatever.
I here's how I feel. I mean, you want to keep Jason Statham around. I get it. You also wanted to make fans happy by bringing Han back.
Right?
And I know fans were pretty upset in the Fate of the Furious when they basically made Jason Statham's character like basically a part of the family, like he was helping them, and
Yep.
they tried to endure you to him more because he saved the baby. So like, yeah, there was that. There was a lot of like kind of retconning him, making him like not as bad as we thought he
Yes.
was. And I can understand if you're a big, like, I love these movies, but I'm like a hardcore fan where I was like upset about that. But some
Right.
people were, because like Han was a pretty popular. Of all the characters came out of Tokyo Drift, he was the most popular, which is why
By a landslide, right?
they
Yeah.
figured out a way to bring him back by saying, you know what, like 4, 5, and 6 take place right before all this, so like this is why he's still here, and this is why he's alive. So it just concerns me, because Gal Gadot, I liked her as Giselle, right? But I also feel like they might try to bring her back, and like she clearly died. I mean, like she clearly died on that very very long runway where that plane was like trying to take off, and there was an explosion and blah blah. She clearly died.
Right.
But I
Hey,
also thought Han
never
clearly
say
died.
never. Yeah, there you go. Never say never with this series. I don't think
Yeah,
they're above anything. Like
yeah,
I I know I wouldn't be surprised, if there's something that they want to bring back for fan service. I don't think anything would stop them. But this trailer, though, for me was the one. It was the first any Fast and Furious movie trailer in a while where I kind of just left my expectations of anything realistic at the door and just kind of tried to get on board with how extreme and ridiculous and over the top that these movies clearly have.
yeah,
They've adopted this identity now that they're not trying to hide how
yeah,
outlandish they are, and so that's what kind of I think why I had a little bit more fun with this trailer. Like even when I saw the first Fast 10 trailer, for whatever reason, I think just because I've watched like all the movies until like where they really started to get off board, I just want to consider them like that they're taking themselves serious. So
yeah,
the crazier they get and the more death defying and gravity defying that they get, I think I'm just kind of taken aback by how
yeah.
outlandish they seem. But I kind of just left that at the door now, and I'm kind of just watching it for the sake of like honestly how I'd kind of watch like a Michael Bay movie. Not to bring him up again, I just have Michael Bay on the mind, I guess. But
We're
just
plugging him hard.
yeah, exactly. Shout out Michael Bay.
Everyone watch Ambulance. It's
Yeah.
actually good.
So I'm kind of like approaching it like kind of now like how I should, like
Yeah,
not trying to take it too critically. So I had fun, and like kind of Jason Momoa looks like he's having a blast. Like he looks like he'll be a fun presence in the movie. Am I expecting that he's going to be at the table by the time Fast 11 comes around if he's not dead? Yeah, probably. But that's just how these movies
yeah,
work now.
yeah. That's true. I mean, I'm also like taken aback by how stacked the cast is. Like every time I like look at it, like when I saw this, watch
Yep.
this trailer, like, and it's a mix of like not necessarily like A-list people, like someone like Jordana Brewster's not A-list, but you know who she is, like from
Mhm.
this franchise. So you have people like her who actually been there from the beginning, which is pretty cool to see. And then now the franchise has gotten so big that you can get people like Helen Mirren to make an appearance, and she's going to be in this one too. Or
Yeah.
you can get an Oscar winner like Brie Larson, and you get an Oscar winner
Charlize
like
Theron,
she's there.
right?
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's someone as Jason Momoa is like you see stuff now. He's like doing this. Alan Richards is also in it. He plays
I
Reacher on
forgot
Jack
about that.
Reacher. He's in
Yes,
this.
Alan Richards.
They're bringing back Scott Eastwood for this, even though I don't think I saw him in the trailer, but I know he's on the cast list and he's in this. They're bringing
Is
him back as well.
is Kurt
Uh,
Russell cast in
I
this?
don't know. It's
I
one thing I
haven't
couldn't
heard
wait
anything
for it.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I love him.
And you get like Ludacris for good measure, and Tyrese if you're into that. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Jason Statham. Like, it's just a mix of talent. I mean, like you got like all over the map, really.
Absolutely.
And like, I love when certain actors do movies like this, like someone like Charlize Theron, because it's like you clearly you want to have fun. Like this
Right.
isn't like groundbreaking, and the fact that they've been bringing her back, I like when she got introduced in the Fate of the Furious, I didn't think we'd be seeing her again in Fast
2
Nine.
movies later,
And
yeah.
yeah, like, I thought she'd be one and done, but clearly she's having a good time. That's why I always think it's interesting when the whole Dwayne Johnson Vin Diesel thing kind of happened, because Dwayne Johnson clearly thinks Vin Diesel's hard to work with, but all these other people seem to not have a hard time working with him.
Well, Dwayne's we got a big ego, probably bigger than
Yeah.
some of the other castmates, so I can see why they would clash. Because it's honestly, I didn't even really think of this about Dwayne Johnson until the Black Adam stuff, but that kind of even showed a lot more how big his ego truly is on big projects like this. So it doesn't surprise me now, knowing what I know, that they butt heads, because they're very much feel like they're cut from the same cloth, and those productions aren't big enough for the both of them, but they only work for so long. On the note of how the longevity of some of these characters, particularly the villains, I'm trying to just realize now, like, they are clearly scared to kill some of these people off, are they not? Does it seem that way?
It seems like they are.
So I wonder if we get any big deaths in this one.
So this is setting up a big finale for this franchise, right? Because technically Fast 11 will be the last one, according to them. The main, Vin Diesel's always careful to say, Vin Diesel always says of the main franchise, it will be the last one of the main franchise. So I'm pretty sure there might be, I know there was talks a while ago to do like an all-female one with all the girls. That sounds okay on paper. Like, I think that'd be kind of fun. But, I can't see Universal giving this franchise up entirely because it's made so much money. I also,
you're right, unfortunately.
and I also don't know how fans will accept something from this universe without the main cast, because they dabbled with that with Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift didn't make a ton of money, but I guess it did set a pretty good foundation for. And they got Justin Lin as a director. That was the first one he directed, and he was a part of that franchise for a really long time. They were able to introduce Sun Kang as Han, so that was good.
Fan favorite character in that movie.
Yeah, and I think in years since it's come out, I think it's been accepted a lot more, especially because I think it's the last one that really focuses on street racing.
Yes.
After that one, they kind of were like, yeah, we can't just like have an entire franchise built on this. Now we got to make them like international, like ice thieves, and like, right. You guys know where it's gone. If you have Dwayne Johnson grabbing a torpedo and throwing it, that's where we've gotten.
Yeah, the ship has sailed a long time ago. The car racing ship.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, it might be hard to kill off some of these people because like so many of the names are big. Like, it's like you don't want to get rid of like certain people. Like,
right.
I mean, I get it. I think certain people might be a little bit expendable, but I wouldn't, like, as a fan of the franchise, I wouldn't want to see certain people go like, "Hey, don't touch Mia. Let Mia be." Yeah. She has to stay happy with Brian, even though like they are finding very loose ways to explain why she's there and he's not.
Well, he supposedly will be. Who was it that said that? Apparently, Brian's storyline will be wrapped up probably in this, even though they did this 3 movies ago.
Yeah, I mean, Furious 7 was such a good send off for not only that character, but for Paul Walker in general. I mean, I've said it to you before that the fact that like a movie like that from a franchise like this took a beat in a moment to like really honor like that character and its star, because they really were very close to him. I thought that was handled surprisingly well for something that comes from like, it's viewed by a lot of people as being just like dumb fun. Right. But yeah, it's like, leave it there. It was done. It was wrapped up perfectly there. Like, he was happy. He has a family.
He had
That's
a
why I think
storybook ending.
yeah, that's why I think it's a little problematic when you bring her back. I mean, because I love Jordana Brewster. I've loved Jordana Brewster since The Faculty, and I
Right.
support her appearing a lot because she's a gorgeous girl.
Hey, I think there's ways for her to be incorporated in the story without her being mainly involved in the action and not have to find a workaround as to why Brian's not there. Like they could,
Uh,
like have some scenes where Dom's like really missing Brian and has to check in and like, and she grounds him or something instead of having her come back on the team and fighting people. I
yeah,
don't There's
so
just different ways to approach.
I agree with you because I know some people might think it would make the character like it'd be kind of like a thankless role to just have her show up and like offer a pep talk and not have her be involved in like the main action.
Right.
Because I'm sure Jordana Brewster missed being a part of the main action. Like,
No
I
doubt.
mean, but I think that makes more sense considering where the character ended up with him at the end of the Furious
Right.
Seven. Like, they were happy and they were family and like they were getting out of that life because of they were starting because they had a family. So like that,
Right.
that made sense. As much as I love seeing her in Fast Nine, and she has a really fun, kick-ass action sequence with Michelle Rodriguez, when she basically said to Dom that like Brian would want her to be there, and I was like, I get it, he's your brother, but no, he wouldn't. Like
No.
he would want you to be safe
Yep.
and not in
Exactly.
any danger. So it's very loose how they try to like keep her around.
Yeah. I get your point about like enjoying her presence and her like wanting to probably miss being involved like with the main cast, but and largely I'm sure she isn't as big a focus in these movies because of Paul Walker's death. But at the end of the day, you're there to service the story as an actor slash character, and that is ultimately what should be preserved the utmost, right? Like
Yeah,
your involvement, I don't know if it should. I don't, well, no, I'll say it a little bit more rigidly. Your involvement as an actor shouldn't compromise the story in any way. I don't think so. Like I think at that point it's unfortunate, but for the sake of the story, it would just absolutely make sense for her to be on the sidelines, and that's unfortunate. But
yeah,
whatever.
you know what too?
Again,
I think that was a bone of contention between Justin Lin and Vin Diesel.
oh yeah,
One of the reasons why I think Justin Lin like vacated directing that like a week into production because
right.
she wasn't involved in it. Like she wasn't in the Fast 10 at all. And I think fans, they really want Mia to be there. I get it. I mean, because she's been there since the first one,
Right.
and she is Dominic's sister. Like, so there's the whole family part of it
Right.
too. But I don't, unless new director, I think is Louis Leterrier. I don't want to butcher his
Louis,
last
yeah,
name.
Louis
Yeah,
Terrier, yeah.
yeah, who is actually coming back to direct the final one too.
Right.
I think, and this is just speculation, but it was kind of playing out online, like on Instagram too, that I don't think that Justin Lin wanted to shoehorn her in just to have her there. And I
Right.
think that Vin Diesel really wanted her there. And I think that was probably one of the things that they had creative differences about
I
because
see.
Diesel put up a post right after that happened, which was like a kind of a throwback with him and her, like from like the first movie, and she really thanked him in the comments about like getting her back involved. So I think he was very instrumental in like probably
Well,
having some rewrites done on how to like include her in
you have a very
this one.
careful eye for this sort of thing.
I
I've been
had to
wondering.
for
Yeah.
work. I was like,
For
what's
work?
going on?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Makes sense.
what's
I've
going
been
on
wondering.
in this
I've
Instagram
been
stuff?
wondering for some insight in behind Justin Lin's departure ever since it happened. Like I could only imagine it was involved in some way with like a bout with Vin Diesel, but I didn't have any insight or any specifics. So I bet you're totally right. That makes sense.
Yeah, because I also think there's pressure too, because like a lot, Vin Diesel actually responded to a fan that wanted addressed the whole thing. Like we want the franchise to go back to its roots, like what it was, which we've talked about before. It's kind of probably hard to like go down to like kind of like scale
Put the
back from
genie
like
back in the bottle. Yeah.
right. Vin Diesel also responded to that fan and was like, "That's what we want to do," and like you can tell that he's like trying to listen to everyone. I think about how to like make that these final two movies really good for fans, and I'm sure
Right.
he got involved a lot with Justin Lin about like we should change this and do that and do this. And when you're a director, that's not. And but you also Vin Diesel is a producer too, so
So you kind
he's
of
in
got to listen
charge.
to him a little
You have
bit.
to listen to him too. But like if Justin Lin felt like he couldn't make the movie that he wanted to make, I'm not mad that he left because he's just like,
No,
I
it
don't want
makes
to.
total sense.
And honestly, he put his signature on so many of those sequels. Him. I think the granddaddy of the ones that he did is probably Fast Five. That's probably like, even though that is when things took a turn. That's when we got, but that's when we got introduced to like Hobbs. We got introduced to like Dwayne Johnson's character. Like
Yeah.
they expanded the universe a little bit and had to like, all right, if we're gonna keep making these, and we have to kind of shift. And even though that shift I think has gone too far, I think with that movie in particular, like he really put his stamp on it, and like those movies
Very
are
much
so
so.
so associated with him. Like, I mean, I know who directed some of the other ones, but I still think Justin Lin is like the person that kind of held that together when he did that third movie that wasn't all that well received when it came out, but like stuck around to expand it a bit.
Well, not to mention
So
the third one has definitely like gotten better with age. It's
age, right,
aged
right,
well. You know, people coming around to it, and ultimately, I'd still say it's a standout
yeah,
amongst the entire franchise. But you know, I'm sure he is missed around there. If not by Vin Diesel, definitely
other
by
people,
viewers such as ourselves. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like he definitely directs action in a very like entertaining way, and I'm interested to see because I don't know. Did Louis Leterrier direct any of the previous ones?
No, he did.
Brand new.
But
Okay.
he has some action, like he did the transporter stuff with, so he's
Ooh,
associated with Jason Statham.
I love
He
the Transporter movies.
Yeah, he directed The Incredible Hulk
Oh right.
with Edward Norton.
Right.
He's done a lot of TV stuff. He's won some Emmys and stuff too. So he's not
Okay.
no, it's not like he's a
He's not
slouch.
brand new then. Okay.
No, he's not brand new. No, he's. I think also, I think they needed a yes man, and I think when you're dealing with Vin Diesel, I think they just need a director like, hey, just do what we tell you, and then that's all
Right.
you need to really do. I think, and it's again speculating. We're just having fun, kind of.
Exactly.
We were not there. We were not on set. We were not on set. But it's just like a lot of reading in between the lines, like how these
Right.
things were kind of going down. We'll know how it all turns out on May 19th, and that's when Fast 10
Damn,
opens.
that's right around the corner.
That's right around the corner, and like we do have on the calendar. We have a Fast and the Furious episode on the calendar. I do not expect Jackson to watch 9 Fast and the Furious movies,
Try
but
and get a few in though.
you know the important, like the first one, maybe Fast 5, Furious
Right.
7. And then you have one of the guys, his name's Ty. He follows podcasts, and he's been trying to get on. I've been trying to have him on for a while, but
That could be a
he
good
likes the
episode.
Fast and the Furious franchise, so I think I'm gonna have him on for that. So that'd be like a
Okay.
fun one to do. I think it'll just be a fun one to kind of dissect them. I
Definitely.
mean, but yeah, no, I do not expect you to watch 9 movies leading up to.
No, but I'm definitely gonna try. Like without a doubt, I'll get the first one in because like I actually just genuinely love that movie, even though it's just Point
Yep.
Break 2.0. I love Point Break, so I love the
Point
first one.
Break with cars. Yeah,
And it's nice to be back in like the roots of the series. And it is just overall like a good watch. It's honestly it's awesome to see young Paul Walker. Like all the cars from that era are super badass looking. I also am a sucker for the underglow on them. So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
without getting ahead of myself, I'll definitely try and get in as many as possible for before May 19th because that will definitely be a good discussion.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a picture from the Fast and the Furious, like where they're all, it's like a publicity photo, I think. They're all like sitting in front of like one of the cars, and like I always look at that picture from that first movie and wonder if any of them thought that they would be the people that were still around, like Vin Diesel, Jordana Brewster, Michelle
right.
Rodriguez, if they would be at this moment now with this franchise when they decided to sign up for this like
I'm
Point
sure
Break
none of
with
them
car movie.
thought.
Yeah, like because they all seem so like young and earnest in the photo. Like they're trying to look like badass because it's like a publicity shot for the movie. But I'm
Right.
like, we tell those guys like this, they're gonna be like international like stars because of this movie. Like this is
Right.
the start of like everyone around the world knows who you are now, and that's every time I see that picture, I always think about that. That must be crazy
Humble
to
beginnings, right?
yeah, humble beginnings for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, what else? What other trailers we got? Do we have another?
Skipping forward ahead, yeah, we got trailer for what on IMDb is crediting it as Insidious 5. It's I think its official title is Insidious the Red Door,
The Red
right?
Door. Yep.
Yes, ominous sounding. What did you think of that trailer? What's your
Um,
thoughts on the Insidious series overall, I
Well,
guess we'll say.
the first one I think is one of the best horror movies that have come out in like, oh god, when did that first one come out? Was it
2010.
2010? So yeah, I think
A little
it's
warm up for the Conjuring for James Wan.
there is a jump scare in that movie that still makes me jump.
The red
And
face.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I know it's fucking coming every single time, and I still jump. Nothing will be as big as the first time I saw it because I legit out like made an audible like noise.
Oh, it is awesome first time scare. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
That and now I'm kind of like desensitized to it now. I've seen it first Insidious enough times that it expected I anticipate it. It is such an effective jump scare though, and I remember even the marketing, the original marketing for it. I remember being in my old room in my parents' place when I was probably 12 when this movie was coming out, and
yeah,
trailer alone, I freaked the shit out of me. So I've always been a little. The Insidious movies have always done a great job at being
yeah,
effectively scary. So I know
yeah.
exactly where you're coming from.
So the first one I love. The second one is not as good as the first one. I still
Definitely
think
not.
it's fine. It's not like it's not a train wreck. And then the third one's pretty good. I thought it's better than the second one.
I haven't seen the
Uh,
third or the fourth.
and like the fourth one's not bad either. Also, I think
Okay.
it's better than the second one. But what I am intrigued by is even though I think the second one has its issues, I do love those characters, and I do like the idea with this one of like going back with them and
Yep.
catching up with like Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson. I think it's cool that they still have the kid from the original movie playing in that
Yeah,
part.
I didn't see that coming. Ty Simpkins.
Like it's crazy when you watch a movie where someone's like a child and all of a sudden like, dude, like no, like we're in college now.
It's weird. It makes you feel a little old, doesn't it?
Yeah, Patrick Wilson is directing this one, which is cool. This is, I
His
think, the
debut
directorial
was
view.
yeah.
But it's cool that someone's directing that is like associated with the franchise at least, even as an actor. The trailer didn't like terrify me or anything, but I still think it looks interesting. Like I'm all in on it. But
Okay.
there was nothing about it that made me go like, ooh, I need to rush and see it. But I mean, even though I will, there wasn't like a huge like that looks amazing kind of factor. But I still think it will be pretty good. I mean, what did you think of it?
I'm a little mixed. I don't really like again like trailer didn't look bad by any means, but it also like what you just said didn't pull me in like to make me feel like I don't think I'm gonna go see it. If it's a light, I don't know when it comes out, but if it's a light weekend or midweek and there's not much competing, like I might go take the time to go see it in theaters. I don't know. Do the third and fourth directly involve I want to call them the Warrens. What's the name of their family?
Oh god, why am I blanking?
Is it the same characters in the third and the fourth?
No, so they the Lamberts. You were
yes,
you're pretty
the Lamberts.
Pretty,
right.
Saying they're the Warrens, even though I know you were like mixing up the Conjuring, it does sound almost similar-ish.
Yeah,
I believe the third one was
they're not in the
prequel.
third.
It was a prequel. So as a prequel set before the haunting of the Lambert family that reveals how gifted psychic Lynn Shay's character gets him. They were introducing like how she got involved. That was directed by Lee Winnell actually, and he wrote it as well. And then Insidious the last
one too.
Yeah, and Insidious the Last Key didn't have the Lamberts either. It was more of a focus on Lynn Shay's character.
Okay.
So this is like I guess this one is taking place 10 years after the events of I guess what would be the first two movies.
Right.
And then picking up with them again.
So that'll be a factor then, and probably going to see it because I'm like, if the third and fourth both directly involve that family, I don't know if I'd want to like get through. Like, I'd probably watch two again. I've seen the first one so many times where I just don't feel like I need to see it again. But anticipation of this movie, but like, I don't know that I would go watch 2, 3, and 4 just in anticipation of 5. It didn't hook me that much. There's things in it I look like interested in seeing again. I'd like to see like how like the character of Dalton and his dad are so clearly plagued by their visions and nightmares and by these demons and stuff. But interested that this is Patrick Wilson's debut. My initial thought when I saw that he was directing this is like, was there nobody else attached to this that like really wanted to make it, that they, or did Patrick Wilson just say all of a sudden,
I wonder if he wanted
to direct a installment?
I wonder if he wanted to express interest like in just doing it. And they were like, okay, well, you've been
be curious to find out why he's directing.
And you know what? And it's I mean, even with the Insidious franchise, he's also closely connected with James Wan too because of the Conjuring and stuff. So they might
that's a great point.
Maybe they've had discussions like, hey, I really want to direct, and like this would be like a.
He's probably learned a lot working
too.
under James Wan because they've directed many movies together, right?
So like I can see like maybe why this would be like he'd be interested in wanting to do it. Nothing about it, at least with the trailer. I actually saw the trailer for it. Other than online, it played ahead of Evil Dead Rise, so it was. Even on the big screen, nothing about it like stood out to me visually. Like, oh, this like is really groundbreaking. Like, if he's doing anything, visually, that's groundbreaking.
It's not groundbreaking, right?
But I mean, I'll be optimistic though, since he's kind of worked under some pretty good horror directors, and
fair enough.
He's evolved the franchise, so he's familiar with it. So there's that.
Do you get a cool shot of the? I know that it sounds a little ridiculous, but it's credited in the Insidious credits as the lipstick face demon, like this red one we're talking about from that jump scare. You do get a juicy look at him again near the end of the trailer. I'm assuming it's him anyway, so I'm like that. It was honestly kind of cool to see him back in there. But my like feelings towards the Insidious franchise aren't as I guess like warm, I guess maybe as yours are. Like it's one of those series where at least with the first one, honestly, I don't know why this is the case, but my enjoyment of the first one has gone down over years versus
really?
I liked it a lot when it came out, and I think maybe it's because I compare them so much to the Conjuring series, which I just think is like just done. I think that's where James Wan put a lot more of his like work and faith into than the Insidious movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of compare them, and like Conjuring just kind of wins for me versus on those ones. And I guess I get less scared of Insidious
Yeah.
over the years. Like, I just doesn't like shock me or scare me as it did back in the day when it first came out.
Yeah, like meanwhile, I'm still like jumping like a little bitch from that one jump scare scene. No, I know it's there. Like, know it's coming.
But there's definitely some freaky imagery in the throughout the Insidious movies that like I'll be excited to see again. Like when they go back like to the further and
Yeah.
like in that demon ghost realm, like that stuff's all pretty freaky, and you know the imagery is always good, and that's what I like kind of get the most out of from that series. But you know what, I'm not jumping at it. I guess the trailer was okay, nothing spectacular in my opinion, but
Yeah.
got a little
Well,
something at least.
we will find out when it opens on July 7th. So yeah, we have a busy summer ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, I mean, definitely gonna see it. I just, nothing about the trailer like really
Mhm.
grabbed me. But I do like the franchise overall, so give it a shot.
Yeah,
Especially that
I
first
might.
movie.
Maybe I'll. Yeah, I'll probably if I get the second one in, then I might go. I might go catch it because early July. I know that there's some big releases later in July, but I don't know what it'll be competing with off the top of my head in that early slot in July. So it might be a good
Yeah, I can't think of
opportunity to
either.
go see it.
Yeah, might be good. Yeah, because you're gonna have like a pretty busy July. Was that 18th when your favorite movie Barbie and Oppenheimer?
20, well, I think it's 20. I think it's 21st if I recall
Okay,
correctly.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah. But
busy
I might not
weekend.
see them both on that day. So you're right. Yeah, but
I'm gonna
yeah,
laugh
no,
if
July
you
is
see
gonna be
Barbie.
busy.
If you see Barbie first, I'm gonna laugh. You probably
The
won't.
only
You
way
won't have the
that'll
principle.
happen
I don't
is
think.
if it's a no, I don't. You know what? If Barbie, it just makes sense to go see it first. If it's a timing thing, I might even just hold off because I have to go see. I've been hyping up Oppenheimer so much, I have to go see it
Yeah,
first. But we'll see. I'm excited for both, regardless. But yeah, no,
yeah.
July's looking like it's going to be at least a busy month at the movies, which hey is never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing at all. I
No.
guess this thing wasn't so much a trailer as it was like a title reveal. I kind of forget these things are
Mm,
happening. I'm not like totally into like the monster first, like
oh,
Godzilla, King Kong. I mean, it's fine. I mean,
right.
it's fun. They're fun, but
Did you
yeah,
see Godzilla versus Kong?
I did. I was actually one. I think
Okay, yeah.
after Mortal Kombat was one of the second movies I saw in theaters when they started to like reopen
Oh, okay, nice.
again. And I think I was just so starved for any movie that's like, all right, we'll go see, we'll just go see this.
Fair enough. Why not, right?
Yeah, I was pleasantly. It was entertaining. I just, I'm
That
glad
would be
like
the word I would describe it as. I hadn't seen it, but if it's going to be anything, it looks entertaining.
yeah. So yeah, we got a little teaser title reveal for Godzilla. I guess X Con. I don't know how you say it. There's an X in the middle.
Okay.
The New Empire is the official name. Uh, Adam Wingard's coming back to direct, which is good. And it serves as a sequel to Godzilla vs Kong, and it will be the fifth film in Legendary Pictures' MonsterVerse. Per the film synopsis, this latest entry follows up the explosive showdown of Godzilla vs. Kong with an all-new cinematic adventure pitting the almighty Kong and the fearsome Godzilla against a colossal, undiscovered threat hidden within our world, challenging their very existence and our own. And the film also stars Dan Stevens, Rebecca Hall, and Brian Tyree Henry, if you care about the humans in these movies.
You know what? I'm excited for Dan Stevens' involvement in that movie because him and Adam Weingart have worked together before on that
On
movie.
the
We chatted
guest.
about a few
Yeah.
the guests, which
Yeah.
those guys work awesome together. I love
Yeah.
that movie so much. So interested to see Dan Stevens in this. I'm curious though. You said this is the fifth movie in the Universal Monsters universe. What is the fourth? Because
So I
I'm
think it's
correct. It
got
goes Godzilla,
and then
right?
Kong, and
Kong,
then
Skull
Kong
Island.
Skull Island, and then there was King of the Monsters, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, whatever it was, the third one.
Was
Or,
that
I
a
think yeah,
standalone Godzilla or was that
yeah, it
Godzilla
was just
versus Kong?
yeah, it was a standalone Godzilla, and then
Oh,
and
okay.
then they did Godzilla versus Kong, and then we get this one.
I don't. I didn't know that there was two Godzilla movies before they went
Yeah,
at it.
and they had a similar thing that plagued poor Ridley Scott Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Godzilla,
Oh yeah.
I didn't mind it, but everyone was like, "Hey, there wasn't a lot of Godzilla in a movie called Godzilla."
Mm,
There's a lot of focus on the humans, right? And they kind of rectified that with like the follow up. There's like a lot more Godzilla, but then there were some
okay.
complaints that there
Nice.
was like, "Oh, well, there was less focus on the human characters." I was like, "Well, what do you want?" First, you were like, "There's too much
Yeah.
focus on the human characters," and now there's whatever. You
Not
can't make
enough.
everybody
Yeah.
happy.
You can't please them
Um,
all. No, exactly.
I do agree though. When I go to see something like this, I just want to see like monster action. I mean, I guess the humans have to be there. I mean, but
Yeah,
that's
I'm
not
gonna follow
that's
somebody.
that's not why you're seeing them. So there's that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, that will be out next year, I believe. If you guys are interested in checking that out, yeah, March 15th, 2024 is when that
oh
opens.
my god, it's that far? Oh yeah, okay. Because they just
Yeah,
announced the title, not a trailer, so that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
I thought we were talking about Ridge for a sec, but we're not. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. March 2024, still a ways away. I can't imagine what that shoot's gonna be like. Probably
yeah. Did you?
hectic,
I
probably
mean, did you
lots
like
of
any of the
expensive.
ones that you saw?
So I haven't seen either of the Godzilla ones, which like growing up, I liked Godzilla as a character. I saw some of the early 2000s ones. I saw Skull Island. I honestly looked at it more as a comedy. Like I didn't love
Unintentionally
it. There's
funny.
moments in it where I actually burst out laughing though. Like I'd revisit it just for the sake of like having a good time watching it.
Yeah,
But I would get around to watching like the 2014 Godzilla. The other ones just didn't really interest me though, honestly. If there's a Universal Monsters universe, this isn't the one I want to see. It's the one involving the Mummy and Dracula and their
yeah,
classic,
yeah,
Hollywood villains. I'd like to
yeah.
see that sort of Universal Monsters verse, but definitely entertaining enough. I'm bored with like the first Godzilla. I would watch that, but I just haven't got around to it. I don't know that I'll be going to see this one, but regardless, it's cool that Godzilla's still around after all these years. I think it's really cool that we're in a time where we see a live action Godzilla and Kong, like
Yeah,
against each other or teaming up, however it goes. Like that is honestly pretty cool. Just as like a cinema lover in me is like that's cool that we get to see that in this day and age. So they've been such
right.
age old characters that's a cool crossover. But I don't know. I haven't really heard anything about the movies that has drawn me to go seeing them. But if you say that they're worthwhile or entertaining, then that might change my mind.
Yeah, they're not like they're it is what it is. I mean, that
Yeah.
Godzilla, the one with like Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson was also in it. It is pretty heavy on the human stuff. It's a very like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
there isn't a lot of. I forgot who clocked the screen time for Godzilla, but it's not that long for a movie that's like 2 hours.
I know that much at least. Yeah. And Brian Cranston's in. So you said
Right.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's in. I didn't even know that. Okay.
And what's funny is that they were, I believe, Elizabeth Olsen and him had just found out that they were going to be in Age of Ultron. They were like both like doing that movie,
Oh,
and
okay.
so like they play like it's funny because they play like lovers in Godzilla, and then play brother and sister in Age of Ultron, and they thought that was kind of funny to like
Yeah,
back in.
definitely a little wacky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it is more of a human affair than like a monster movie that
Okay.
focuses on him. But what you do get of Godzilla is pretty cool. It's pretty good, but it really isn't enough for like something called Godzilla, like to hide your monster for most of the movie and not have a lot of like
Well,
Godzilla
you know
action.
what? I'm thinking of like Cloverfield and how we were
Yeah,
talking about like we don't see a whole lot of the Clover monster on screen, but when it's there, it's effective. So if like it's anywhere
yeah,
comparable to how that is portrayed, then I'm on board with that. I don't necessarily need like 30 straight minutes of Godzilla muckage. It would be all right, but sometimes less is more, and I have to see it to make up that decision for myself. But
yeah,
I'd at least check it out because I like the cast a lot. Godzilla's just a really sweet, movie character and monster.
yeah.
So to see like a revamp of him in like his first movie, I would definitely give it some love. Yeah, I
Well,
guess I've been so picky. I find myself I'm
like
really, especially chatting some big your name stuff lately. I find I'm really picky with some of my watches. I kind of want to just leave expectations at the door sometimes and just watch it for the sake of watching it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we'll get to see them kind of teaming up with each other. I guess, and this is what it sounds like from the
Yeah,
synopsis. So they were
right.
at odds, and now they have to team up to beat up a bigger threat than either one of them. So sure, it'll be at least it'll be fun to probably watch. At least
Yeah, no
there's that.
doubt. Entertaining, fun for the family. Be curious to see how it'll do when it opens up, but that'll be a conversation for another day.
Yep.
Speaking of, I got a little bit of a little surprise news. I want to see if you had heard this. It's something we didn't chat about off camera, but little known actor by the name of Bill Hader, who I know has been definitely busy with filming Barry, that
Yep.
show, that HBO show, which I actually haven't seen, but I've heard great things about. Have you caught any of that?
I've actually never
Is it
seen Barry.
done?
I think it's just the final season.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard it's very good. I've never
I've
watched it.
heard great things too, and
Uh,
apparently like sets a standard for like television, like comedy
yeah,
dramas
not as
lately.
sinful as me
Um,
not watching Breaking Bad, guys. So like, it's not
no,
as sinful.
exactly, not even
But
close.
apparently,
No, I haven't
very
seen it
very good
either.
show though.
Yeah, on my list for sure. But anyway, so I wanted to verify that that Barry was wrapping up because that'll make sense for what I'm about to deliver. But so Bill Hader is developing a horror comedy movie that he is apparently trying to star in, and this is per IndieWire. This is just a headline that I saw earlier this week and wanted to throw by it. I love the sound of that. I love that Bill Hader's doing something original and putting himself
Nice.
in it because he's a big talent. So I
Yeah.
I don't know any other details beyond that, but what do you think of that news?
No, that'd be actually
Had you
really
heard
cool because
that?
I think I saw a blurb about it, but I didn't like read into it too much. But
Right.
yeah, that'd be pretty interesting because he is I mean, a really cool creative mind. So I would like want to see like what kind of horror comedy he would come up with. And of course, we talked about how horror comedy can be hit or miss. So I hope
Yes.
it's a hard subgenre to get right. But he seems like he would be able to. So I would trust in that for sure. I would, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
he's
be
an
really
actor I've
interested in
really
that.
like. Yeah, I've really admired his like career progression, like post. I didn't really know Bill Hader much before like Super Bad. So
Yeah,
to see him rise up and like just take on a lot more like dramatic projects and stuff and like really develop as a creator, I've just been really on board with his career. So I'm was like thrilled honestly to hear that he's developing a horror comedy. Really on
yeah.
board with that. Love me some Bill Hader.
I love Bill Hader, and you know what? He dated Rachel Bilson, the lucky son of a bitch. So I'm gonna give him that credit. That
I
credit too.
recognize the name, but you have to fill me in. Who is
So
she?
Rachel Bilson played Summer on the OC. She
Okay.
she also, I always like wording it this way. She also gave birth to Anakin Skywalker's child. She dated Christian,
Oh,
or I think she was married to him. I think, or I don't know. They were in a long term
okay.
relationship, and they had a kid together. I always like saying that 'cause she actually makes jokes about how like sh I don't think her daughter fully realizes that her dad is Darth Vader, and they've actually talked
Wow.
about it on they've talked about it on like the OC like podcast that she has with one of the girls that used to be on the show, and like it's she's so funny that like he's this, you may not love everything that Hayden Christensen did with uh, the prequels, but it's kind of cool that your dad would be like Darth Vader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That is pretty
Um,
cool.
but yeah, and then she's done some movies. She was in Jumper with Hayden Christensen. That's how they met.
Oh,
Um,
her. I know.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember Jumper. I used to. That was one of my earliest DVDs I had. I used to watch a bunch, like that movie, a bunch of times when I was growing up. And it
I
was honestly
convinced
like
myself that I thought it was good. I haven't seen it in so long.
same here. It's probably way worse than I remember, but I saw it at such a young age that I just didn't even really realize. But I would die for a rewatch of that movie. What a
Yeah, for
little
sure.
treat. Yeah.
She's
Samuel
in that.
Jackson is a bad guy too.
Yeah,
Anyway, she's gorgeous. I know exactly who you're talking about now.
and she hasn't aged at all. I think she's like 41 or 42 now. Like it's so
Oh,
weird when I watch stuff where like I grew up like on the OC, like she's playing high school, of course, and but I think she was like maybe 2021. She started on
right.
the OC,
Okay.
and certain people are frozen in my brain because that's what you know them from. So
Right.
it's so weird to think that like God, she's like 41 or 42 now, and she looks great. Like she hasn't aged like at all. But yeah, on that show, I remember like on shows like that, the fun best friend always ends up stealing the show a bit. And
Right.
on that show, Summer was the fun best friend. She wasn't really supposed to be like the lead. And actually she was like a guest star when they started the show, but the character was so popular that they
Okay.
made her a regular. But when you see her standing next to Misha Barton and Marissa, who was just always something was wrong with her, like always, every episode something
Okay.
was wrong with Marissa. You got more fun Summer standing right next to her. Like
Right.
that girl is gonna like steal your heart. So like that her character is pretty funny on that show,
Okay.
and she starts as like kind of like vapid and stuck up, and then she grows as the show like progresses.
I see.
Yeah, Bill Hader like snagged that for a little bit.
Yeah,
I was
not a
like
boy.
impressed. I
Good
was
work, Bill.
impressed for that, and good work on that horror comedy. So I'm looking forward to like seeing what he comes up with.
Yeah, be paying attention
With
to
it.
those details as they emerge. Like I said, I
Yep.
don't literally know anything else about it, but definitely have my. Well, I'm sure we both will have our ears to the ground as that
Yep.
develops.
All right,
Yeah.
so I will other horror news and not in a fun way. Little
Yeah.
that little thing that we teased you on earlier when we were talking about the Harry Potter TV series because we were like, hey,
Right.
Max is doing it, and then I like get an email from work and it's like the headlines just Lionsgate is in early development on a Twilight TV series.
Yes. Highlight.
For those who are not familiar with Twilight, they're based on the Stephanie Meyer's books about vampires who glow and glisten in the sunlight. I mean, that's not all it's about.
Teenage vampires.
Teenage
High school
vampires.
vampires.
It's starred, Robert Pattinson and Chris Stewart. Kellen Lutz was in Peter Facinelli. A lot of and that guy even got real good actors to be in some of the other ones, like Bryce Dallas Howard was in Eclipse. Dakota Fanning showed up actually. Rami Malek had a role in one of these towards the end of the run. I
What?
forgot. And so they actually attracted some decent talent. Taylor Lautner was a thing for a little bit when these movies were big.
Mm,
I don't know what happened to
yep.
him, but he was supposed to be like the thing, and he never really I'm sure he's happy, but he never really progressed much past like
I'm sure he was
these
happier
movies.
when he kind of got out of this phase because like he was like definitely a worldwide sensation amongst definitely like
Yeah, I mean,
teenagers and
he
like young
dated
adult
Taylor
women.
Swift for like a hot minute during this
Yeah,
period, so
there you go.
he
Exactly.
was pretty popular. Uh,
Pretty sure.
guys,
Yeah, I read.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I read something about him. He did an interview. I don't know how recently, or like an op-ed or something. He was discussing like particularly how the limelight and the constant spotlight really affected him, like mental health wise and even physically. So I think he's been probably better off not being like a movie star at the same caliber as he used to be.
Yeah, because they were, I
He
mean,
was a
they were
sensation.
pretty. I mean, what was it, Team Edward, Team Jacob? Like you can only be on one
Yeah,
side. you either were
that's right.
you're either werewolf Jacob or you're with Empire Ed. And the thing was,
Yeah.
I remember when I was watching those movies because I watched all of them. I saw every single miserable one
Oh
of them.
wow, lucky you.
Uh, Jacob was healthier for her. Like, I mean, as a potential love interest, but for
Partner.
some reason, she was into the vampire who she like basically wanted to like almost kill herself for. Like, I'm like, there's like some subtext in those movies and in the books, I guess, that I don't think is necessarily the right message for teenage girls, especially when it comes to like this kind of like undying love that means the world to me and means so much to me that you go to like really really bad lengths to kind of maintain said love.
Right.
They're romanticizing it for the sake of like movies, but like if you're older and you're watching it, you're like, no, that's not a good message.
Right.
But there's no denying that they made a lot of money. It followed the whole like Harry Potter like trajectory where like the final like book was split into two movies. I know that wasn't necessary for King Dawn because I know the book isn't as long as like Deathly Hallows, so it didn't need to be two movies.
Right.
But this was like
Hey, money.
milking it for all it's worth. Uh, yeah, I mean, what we know about the TV show so far, Nate Daly, whose credits include Tell Me Lies, The Walking Dead, World Beyond, Raised by Wolves, and The Get Down, is attached to write the script for Twilight. It says Daly is working with Lionsgate TV to determine what the specific take on Twilight will be and if it will be a remake of Myers' books or a different offshoot.
Hey,
So you know how I was saying like I was intrigued by the Harry Potter stuff because like at least there's some good material there.
what are your thoughts on this?
I hear the books aren't even good, so I don't even know if you can make something viable. Like I see like the seeds of a good idea in those movies because I've never read the books, but
Right.
I mean but so many other people have done vampires and werewolves so much better. Even teenage, like I'll watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer all day if I
There
need
you
like
go.
a teenage vampire like fix because at least that show was smart and
Right.
it can handle comedy and drama very well and like really kind of like had a nice balance of like everything you would want from a genre TV show like that. It never got good. The only one I think that is like I can give some Eclipse is like shot well, and I'm like
Oh,
pulling that.
okay.
I'm like tugging at like looking strings, trying to like figure out something nice to say.
Yeah.
It's shot well. That's all I can say about the third movie and it makes really decent actors seem like they're not that good. So like that's why so many people were up in arms when Robert Pattinson got cast as Batman because like this is what they knew him from. Even though by the time this franchise had ended, he had
It
done
was
some
so
great.
far.
He had done some great independent movie work.
Oh,
And
big time.
Kristen Stewart, even though I don't love her personality in interviews and stuff, she can act. But like you would never guess it from watching these movies.
No,
Uh,
she's come a long way. Honestly, I enjoy her these days, but I remember when these were coming out, I used to think, wow, the girl that plays Bella is like a plank of wood. You know what I mean?
basically,
Yeah.
the best thing I can say, other than the clips, this was Anna Kendrick's like her. It was her first movie she did. She played Bella's best friend,
I forgot all
and
about her involvement. Wow.
and Anna
You're taking
Kendrick
me
was
back.
basically like not making a lot of money. So this was like her first big paycheck. I remember on Twitter when the 10th anniversary for Twilight came out, people were tagging her on Twitter, and I think I like a kind of a Cliff Notes version of what she said, because I don't know exactly verbatim, but it was something on the lines of like, "Holy shit, I was in that movie!" Like she was like trying to making fun of it. I think she probably looks back on it as like something that gave her a career, and like it was like
Oh,
the first
absolutely.
big thing she got to be a part of. She was a Broadway girl before she did movies and stuff, and she tells a really interesting story when she did Up in the Air, which she eventually got nominated for an Oscar for. She she was always thinking that like one of her jobs was going to be her last one. Like she didn't feel too
Wow.
comfortable or set while she was making movies in like the early part of her career. Uh, and she almost felt like she felt out of place surrounded by people like George Clooney and Vera Farmiga in that movie.
I can
Um,
imagine.
and then but then the movie comes out, does really well. She gets an Oscar nomination, but she's still tied to like appearing in Twilight on some level because like there's like a contract, and it's not like the character got like a bigger role as those movies went along. She wasn't involved too much in like the vampire stuff because she was like Bella's like friend in high school, and that
Right.
was the extent of that relationship. But yeah, I always think it's funny. Like of all, I guess the good thing that came out of that, we got Anna Kendrick, and she is a pretty good actress and
Definitely.
very likable and lovable. But yeah, I forgot who it was. I had a friend that read an excerpt from one of the books to me, and I was like, oh, this can't be a good anything if this is what you're reading to me. Like, no.
My hopes aren't exactly high for this series either, but I guess time will tell really how it unfolds. Interesting though, like point that you made earlier, I can help but feel that we've seen there's so many different iterations of this sort of content, and even just since Twilight, that I don't know what the appetite is really going to be for this. But you know what, it could be an opportunity for this up and coming like young generation that
Yeah,
hadn't maybe this was like love them or hate them, the books were an absolute phenomenon when they were at their heights. Like I was probably in like
yeah,
fourth through sixth grade when these movies were at their peak, when the movies were coming out, and they were huge. I remember like my best friend at the time, his sister like didn't even go to school until she was done like reading the books
really.
cover to cover. Like she was so infatuated, and she was by no means the only person that was like invested in the books. Like they were definitely a young adult phenomenon. So maybe we'll see if maybe they get a second life with the younger generation. But
Yeah,
again, yeah, I won't exactly be holding my breath either.
yeah. I mean, I won't either. This is like not the reason why I don't care about this so much. Them doing it, it's not beloved for me like the Harry Potter stuff is. So it's like do
Right.
it, and maybe you'll get lucky, and it might be better than the movies that they cranked out. But if you're wondering why we're getting a TV series or why they want to keep this IP going on some level, across all of its installments, the series grossed $3.4 billion worldwide across all the
Mm,
movies.
there you
And
go.
there you have it. That is
Yeah.
why.
It's always the money.
And just knowing how fast things move, when Twilight, the first one, grossed 35.7 million on its opening day, Summit Entertainment announced that they would begin production on New Moon after that day. So they knew that they were like, all right, after that
Oh
opening
my
day.
god.
And I love this too. Like I'm just looking at it. I looked it up on Wikipedia, but it's like the films in the series have received generally negative to mixed reviews from critics.
It sounds about right. Yep.
Sounds about right. So they've had four different directors across the movies: Catherine Hardwicke, Chris Weitz, David Slade, and Bill Condon. And none of them can make these movies good. I'm sorry, guys. Just and I don't even think it's your fault because Catherine Hardwicke, you directed a movie called 13 that I love. That it's a really solid independent movie. Uh, I don't think it's them. I just think it's the
The
material.
material, perhaps. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it
Yeah.
goes all the way back to Stephanie Meyer. And but also too. I also want to point out too, across five movies, the budget $401 million. So they made so much money off of these movies. Uh, but I will also be honest too. You know what? These are not made for us. So
That's a great
you
point.
know,
We are not by no means the target audience for these.
I wasn't even the target audience when the movies were coming out. I was like, I'll just check it out because everyone's like, they were making a big deal out of like how huge the books were, and I was like, all right, well. But then by the time they got to that whole baseball scene in the first one,
Oh
I
my
was like,
oh my
I
god.
am tapping out.
Have you ever seen? There's 2 points I want to get before we move on from this. Have you ever seen the parody "Vampires Suck" that literally rips
Yeah,
off Twilight?
yep,
That I haven't seen that in a long time. It might not be as good, but I remember that being hilarious, and like they pick on vampire tropes just so
so
humorously from
well.
what I remember. But my buddy Cam, he so he has a longtime girlfriend, and I don't know. I have a feeling that that kind of led to them watching these. I think maybe she has a soft spot for them, or they threw it on
Yeah,
one night just to check it out again. And he actually said, and because of what he said, I will probably watch the first one again. He said that it was genuinely hilarious, like bad, funny, like kind of like The Room
yeah,
is
yeah,
kind of how he compared it. Like it's so
yeah,
bad, it's funny. And just this is like breaking down some scenes because I would have seen the first one a lot when I was like I don't know 8 or 9 when these came out or the first one came
yeah.
out. So I would have seen it. Like I said, my best friend at the time, his sisters were all over it. They had it on DVD. We saw it while it was hot, but I don't remember anything about it. So like Cam was breaking down these scenes for me from the movie and like busting a gut laughing like as he was reciting them. And like honestly, It sound quite funny. So I'd be on board with like checking out the first one again, like purely as a comedy.
Almost like watch it as
Yeah.
like Mystery Science 3000, like almost making it.
Exactly. The other
Yeah,
3 or 4, there was 5. They broke the fourth one into 2 parts. You said, right?
yeah, yeah.
Those I don't know that I'll ever get around to seeing, but the first one seems like it could be funny enough to warrant a visit.
So I saw the first one in theaters. Big mistake. Uh, I
Oh,
they didn't fool me. They didn't fool me enough to go see the other ones in theaters. I waited. I was like, all right, I'll wait till these come around
but
and
it's
watch them
still
at home.
impressive you got around to seeing them all.
I was like, I'll give anything a chance. Like maybe it gets better. I
Right?
mean, I should have known by the end of that second one. I was like, no, they're not going to get better, are they?
Probably worse, if anything.
That third one looks pretty. That's about it. Other than that, it's yeah. Everyone ate those movies up. I just remember like just hearing girls talk about it. Like it was like the
Right.
second coming. Like it was like
Yep.
the best thing like
That's
they've
how I
ever
remember
seen.
it too. Yeah.
And then they progressively just made more and more money too. Like it's hard for me to shit on it. I mean, at least critics were shitting on it because they're like, yeah, but it also most of the people reviewing those movies were like old white dudes, so it wasn't made for them. It
No,
certainly
that's
wasn't
right.
made for them. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm cool with like any demographic having their thing. It doesn't have to be
Sure.
for doesn't have to be for
Exactly.
us.
But hey,
Um,
it's so fun to comment on it and see what you think about it. Like,
uh,
doesn't mean don't take our opinions,
right,
for
right,
worth their weight, but whatever. It's still
yeah.
fun, amusing, humorous.
So so Lionsgate, you go ahead and make that little
Yeah.
little
At worst, it'll be
Twilight
as
Twilight
shitty as the
thing.
original, so you can't really get
Yeah,
lower than that.
and probably just as popular.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And do we have to pivot to more serious ish news, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the note to end it on before we get to box office. We've had some developments in story, the Chronicles of Jonathan Majors. So, what exactly unfolded over the last week?
Well, what's crazy is that you talked about that rumor, the Marvel rumor, right? And I
Mm,
think as soon as we hung up to then record the Sandlot episode,
yes,
I got an email saying that Jonathan Majors got dropped by his management and publicist,
drop like a bad habit.
which is never a good sign because if
No,
your management or publicist believed that you're gonna get out of this okay, there's no reason they would drop you because you're still technically attached to the Marvel universe. So far, um, and it feels like they have heard and seen things that they're just like, no, there's no coming out of this. I think,
right? Yeah.
and that was just like the beginning of the bad news. I was like, that's pretty bad. But
Yes.
then I think it was the next day or the day after, Variety broke that story that like other alleged abuse victims are cooperating with the Manhattan DA office and like telling their stories about alleged abuse from Jonathan Majors. So it's pretty bad when there's more than one person because
Definitely.
what has also happened since then, there's all the talk about the video, right? So there's video of the first accuser out partying that night after the alleged like incident happened, and it looks like she's fine. It hurt.
Right.
There's also like talks from like one of the drivers that was in the car with him, like an Uber driver or whatever, that dropped him off. Could corroborate that like he instigated the fight and she attacked him. He never attacked her. He actually got out the car and never touched her. And then there's also, I guess, other texts. She sent him like a flurry of texts and calls, like when she got back from, I guess, clubbing or whatever, talking about like the alleged infidelity and then talking about how she wanted to kill herself and then like all this other stuff. And then that is when the cops, get involved and they see all these like bruises and stuff. And it seems like trying to say that I think Jonathan Majors and his legal team were trying to say that maybe she might have did that to herself and
Oh, okay.
that he wasn't involved. So great, you have video footage of her partying the night that this supposedly happened. That doesn't really prove anything either because a lot of people deal with trauma differently. So I don't want to say that's a good excuse as to
Right.
that not being the case. The driver having a witness like that is pretty good to show that like, maybe she was the aggressor. He never put his hands on her.
Right.
And then the calls and texts later that night saying the things that she said. What doesn't look good, and we've talked about it too, about the court of public opinion, when you even put out in the ether that other people might have had the same kind of interactions with him, even
Yeah.
if you prove that this girl, nothing happened with her, there's still that. And now that seed of doubt has been planted, and
It's only gonna grow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been quietly dropped from a few other projects that he was attached to. Uh,
What else?
and let's see if I can pull it up. They were like smaller movies. Oh yeah,
Okay.
okay. So he was going to be on the U.S. Army also reconfigured a new ad campaign without Majors featuring as the narrator, and the baseball team, the Texas Rangers, also dropped him from an ad campaign. He's also been dropped from the film adaptation of The Man in My Basement, and he's out of consideration for an unannounced Otis Redding biopic.
Wow.
And then this is not. He also will not be attending the Met Gala as a guest. So I mean, whoa,
What? Oh shit!
not the Met
How will they
Gala.
recover?
Well, I guess that is a pretty big celebrity thing to go to, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no doubt, of course. That's
um,
not good for him by any means.
so far, Marvel hasn't made a move publicly.
I'm honestly surprised. They really want to cling. I'm sure they do not want to go through a recast of that role, especially someone that they definitely put a lot of stock in going forward.
Yeah,
This is probably a nightmare for them right now to be dealing with. Not
right.
jealous of them. I honestly, I would lie if I said I wasn't surprised that they've been sitting on it for this long. What do you think about that? Do you have a different opinion?
I'm surprised too. I would think they would want to get this soon because they actually advanced screenings for Guardians start this Friday. They are, I think they are so confident in how Guardians is going to do. I think they're lifting the embargo that day for
Oh,
reviews.
okay.
Uh,
Is
so
he supposed
that
to
is
be in this at all?
no, but because press also starts then, and I think if you're Kevin Feige, that question is going to get asked, even if it's not Guardians related.
Oh
So
yeah.
they're gonna be like, hey, so what's the deal? And you know what?
Mhm.
A lot of people's publicists, they'll send you emails telling you what not to talk about with talent,
Okay.
but some people try to sneak in questions anyway. So I still
Yep.
could see that being the case of like, hey, this is big thing. He is the centerpiece. He's your main villain for this phase. Uh, what are you guys going to do? I would think you would want to get ahead of that before this massive global campaign for your next big
Well, the
Marvel
clock is
movie.
ticking, and
Yeah,
sooner or later they're going to be confronted, like you said, with these questions. And I will be listening intently to see what the plan. Maybe it'll be around the time that those advanced screenings for Guardians come out that they make their decision so that they have a leg to stand on when it comes time to answer the press. Maybe we'll
yeah.
see something.
And I'm sure there's gonna have to be they have to work out because they said the reported deal that he has for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty is upwards of $20 million. So if there's a contract there, I mean, I don't know if there's any outs in those kind of contracts when you do that he allegedly might have done,
Right.
or what they'll have to do if they do recast. I don't think there's anything they can do about Loki season 2. That's happening, and
Oh yeah, and he's
nothing
a part of that.
nothing they can do about that. But like they haven't started
Mm.
filming Kang Dynasty
Right.
or any other stingers with him, as far as we know, that he might be a part of. But if you're them, you have to be now being like, all right, now we have some decisions to make.
Like off the top of your head, do you know when Loki season 2 is set to come out? Like, I
Nope,
finished filming it, or
I think it's all done. I'm gonna look that up real
'cause
quick.
I wouldn't put it past Marvel to like refilm like well they'd probably I imagine they'd probably have to do like quite a bit of that season. But if it comes out like if it's like a night and day clear, like no two ways about it, like there's damning evidence against him that he absolutely abused or assaulted multiple women.
Yeah,
I can't see them being like, oh, it'll be fine. Let's release season 2, even with he's a major character. I don't maybe too far gone, but I wouldn't think that Marvel would want to be dealing with that backlash. So I'd be
yeah.
surprised if they go ahead, if that's what
Well,
happens by the
I
time it comes out.
think this might be kind of soon. So
It'd be in their
the
interest to get
second
it the sooner the
the
better.
second season finished filming October 2022, so
Oh,
it's already shot
oh
in the
okay.
can.
Well undone.
Uh, and they said the second season of Lodi has been teased to release in summer 2023, but no like solid release date yet.
Okay, so
Uh,
yeah,
that's soon. I mean that
so
would be
very soon. And
relatively soon.
I'd say it's in their best interest to get it out, get ahead of like actual concrete. Once it's out there and it's not deniable, if that's how this ends up going, I'd
Yeah,
say that they have a pickle on their hands with Loki season 2.
I say they do too, and I know no studio wants to deal with this. I mean, like it's
Marvel, least of all, they're champions of this. They very much and any sort of like
yeah,
bad publicity to like this degree. I would probably be especially Disney, who obviously owns Marvel. I can't imagine that they would want to go anywhere near that if everything
yeah.
gets all
And I
confirmed
also
and
don't
whatnot.
think they want to like go too fast. Because remember they moved too fast with James Gunn when they let him
Yes,
go.
so they're trying to
Um,
learn lessons. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really and like I want to clarify when I say the situation sucks. I don't he did this. I don't feel bad for him in that sense.
Of
I am
course
just
not.
saying that like, but like a much better story here is seeing the rise of someone very talented having a moment that clearly he was having.
Yeah,
Uh, he could easily be like in league with like next kind of like Denzel Washington kind of type if he wanted to be. Now, that is
He's very
not
much
happening.
plummeted. No, yeah.
Plummeted. Never seen a rise and fall like this. Like,
I
not like,
think we have a future case study on our hands, to tell you the truth, of like how prominent up and coming actor was and how quickly they fell from grace. Regardless of how it gets resolved, it's undeniable his career,
yeah,
even if even if he's able to maintain jobs as an actor after this, no denying that his career as it stands at 2023 is effectively over. I don't think he'll
yeah.
ever reach heights that
And
he'd already gotten. So that itself will be definitely interesting to study in the
yeah.
future.
And there's also Magazine Dreams, which I know they were slating it for a December Oscar run for him. I don't know if that's the case anymore. They haven't moved it or anything. And of course that's in December. A lot can change between now and December, but it's it's a total nightmare for all involved. Like you have movies with him that he's attached to. God, if you're him, of course, this isn't a good thing. All I honestly, if there had been these murmurs of like other people that he's allegedly done this to, and you prove one girl might be lying, I think there was a way out for him to kind of like
Yep.
get
Maybe not the
around it.
court of a public opinion, but actual
Yeah,
court.
yeah, but I think
Sure.
once you start, I plan to see that like this could be a habit, and like that's what people are going to think. No matter, everyone has their own opinion on it already. There
Yeah.
are, there have been some that have compared this in a very negative way, comparing it to like the Ezra Miller thing, how they feel like Jonathan
Oh,
Majors
yeah.
attacked a bit more than Ezra Miller got chance after chance after chance after chance. I still maintain that Ezra Miller will be gone after the Flash. I don't think they're going to keep Ezra Miller around. That is my personal opinion. You have a $200 million movie in the can, and they can't really do anything about it
Right.
at this point. Uh,
Yeah,
and,
no, I
and
agree with you there.
I get the comparisons too, because there's a lot of implications about race too when it comes to comparing Jonathan Majors and Ezra Miller.
Certainly.
It seems like,
Hey, it's an interesting case. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong.
no,
I can
and
see
I'm
that.
not saying it's not necessarily wrong. The optics don't look great, uh,
No,
especially if they both did horrible things, then people should be like losing opportunities and losing jobs. But JC Merck with the movies did make a good point. Ezra Miller hasn't picked up any new jobs, you know, since all the
right,
stuff. Oh, it's only the
right.
Flash. So I understand a little different where like Jonathan Majors was attached to all these other things that are coming out and attached to maybe star in a few things, and he's losing those opportunities because they were already lined up. Ezra Miller has nothing lined up post Flash, so the situations are a little different. But I also understand the
Yep.
optics not looking great.
I completely understand the optics as well. I think another variable to be considered too is that they are obviously handled and puppeteered, if you will, for lack of a better word, by completely different studios. They have completely different publicists, different
Right.
managers, all these individuals that, as they relate to either Jonathan Majors or Ezra Miller, are capable of making their own different decisions. And so it's not necessarily fair to compare the decisions of, well, if this would be much easier to look at, I think, if they were handled, if they were both Marvel or both DC, you know what I mean?
Right.
But whereas they're on different sides of the coin,
Right.
you can it makes sense, I guess, that there'd be slightly different decisions made, but totally agree that the optics are bad. And that's not to say that it's right one way or the other, because I agree that they should both be treated absolutely the same. But the case remains with the Flash. That is talk about a rock in a hard place. There's no good way to go about that. But I honestly am still surprised that DC is still, to this day, still sort of not given a concrete answer as to how they're going to handle Ezra Miller going forward.
They really haven't. And honestly, they possibly have reason to celebrate this week because CinemaCon is happening in Vegas, and people there will be able to see the Flash first.
Okay.
That's crazy that they're going to premiere it so that far ahead, because you sign a lot of stuff when you go to stuff like that to not talk about certain things.
Right.
But God, I don't know how you're going to avoid any leak of any kind that
it's a
far
month
in
and
advance.
a half.
Yeah,
early. Yeah,
they might have something to celebrate once that screening is over. Yeah, I agree with you. It was, if Ezra Miller was a part of Marvel and they were handling that situation one way and then handling the Jonathan Majors one a different way, I would cry foul of that too.
Absolutely, and you well within your rights to do so. That would be way more of a comparable, situation. But agree, where there's different variables at play when they're managed by different people, corporations, companies. You know what I mean? But regardless, both should definitely, get what they deserve. And I hope that's the case, regardless of how things goes around the majors. I hope his name's cleared if he's not guilty of these things. And I hope he doesn't have these opportunities if he is found guilty of them. So
Right, I agree.
obviously that goes without saying, but
This is a good lead in to talk. I'm going to talk about the box office in just a second. I did want
yeah,
to mention, because this is a big story. I mentioned it to you right before we signed on for this.
tell me more about this. I feel very
So,
much like the audience here because I'm not familiar with this issue.
so we're facing a potential writer's strike, the Writers Guild of America. And a lot, I've seen a lot on Twitter. I've seen it with a lot of my friends who also write. I've seen it with a lot of my friends who also act. They said they can tell that there is a definite slowdown in deal making and production right now because no one's really sure what's going to happen. And then there are other writers who I've seen post on Twitter saying they're writing their hearts out until, because they want to get as much done or get a lot out there or a potential strike happens. This
Okay.
hurts. This will, I mean, it hurts the industry both ways. You'll feel almost an immediate kind of impact from the TV end because TV
Okay.
has to crank out more. They crank out like, between, you have like a limited series that's 8 to 10 episodes, or even have a network show that's like 20 or more. Uh, you know, if the Writers Guild goes on strike, then those writers don't write, which means that nothing it goes into production without screenplays. So what is going on is that 98% of WGA West and WGA East members are authorizing a strike if a fair new film TV deal isn't met by the May 1st deadline. We have gone through writers strikes 4.
Right.
This is like the least. So there was a show called Heroes back in the day. I don't know if you ever heard of Heroes, but
I
like
heard of it. I don't know much about it.
had an amazing first season, like one of the best first seasons of a TV show I've ever seen. Season 2 happened to fall in the middle of the writer's strike, and that killed the momentum of that show. It killed the momentum of a lot of TV shows.
Yeah.
The longest WGA strike on record was in 1988, and I'm familiar with this one because the guy who wrote Halloween 4 said he had to crank out that script in then like 10 days before the strike happened. It was from March 7th to August 7th, lasting 153 days, followed by the 1960 strike at 146 days, January 16th through June 10th. And then the one during Heroes was 2007 to 8 strike from November 5th, 2007 to February 17th, 2008 at 100 days. This doesn't really affect some of the movies that are on the docket now, like your summer movies. They're not going to really move anything around. It's, going into production, that stuff that's like 2024. It could really like slow things down if no one's going to be writing anything. That means like when you go on strike, when you're on part of the Writers Guild, you know how like sometimes they're like, oh, like you might be in production, there might need to be rewrites done. You're not going to get those rewrites.
None of that. Oh,
none of that.
I hadn't thought about that.
Soap operas survive strikes because they hire what they call scab writers that aren't a part of the Writers Guild. So they get to continue to write, keep their shows going. There is an option to do that, but I think a lot of other productions don't want to, because a lot of actors too, even though they know this will slow things down, they support writers getting a fair deal when it comes to writing film and TV. So they're all in support of a strike, but they're also very aware of it could hurt, especially things are starting to get back to normal. Movie theater going is almost back to normal. Box office is almost back to normal. And to have a lull where potentially there might not be any content created, it's very similar to like what's going on with like COVID when everything shut down and nothing can go into production. That was a forced, thing that happened. But like this is, kind of the similar idea where, unless they come up with a deal that works, they will go on strike, and they will strike as long as they need to until they get what they want. And that would be
are they negotiating a contract?
They're negotiating, and that's what they're going back and forth on.
Right.
And then they, authorize they can go on strike on May 1st. That was like when that story broke, I think last week, that the deal was like, yeah, you can authorize it if your, deals aren't met by this date, then going on strike. I just wanted to mention it because we hadn't mentioned it, and it's been kind of building and building, but this was like,
well, yeah, now we got a week before the deadline, so that's
the biggest of it.
Potentially by the time we're recording next week, there could be a completely different there could be a writing strike. That's crazy because it's been, let's see, just a quick math here, 16 years since the last one.
16,
15 years. That's quite
so hopefully what we're telling you next week is that they didn't, and like they worked it out.
Fingers crossed.
Finger crossed on that one, but yeah, it's something to kind of keep your eye on, and if you're following it, and I know a lot of industry friends I know are following it, they can tell that things are. You can tell like there's like a kind of like stagnant thing. They're like, all right, we need to wait and see like what happens this before we make any further deals or go into production on like anything else. Yeah, you'll definitely, if it lasts a significant amount of time, you'll definitely, if you watch a lot of TV or like even the streaming stuff, you'll see. I mean, more so for network TV, but you would see it. It would pause like immediately, like it would almost go like with reruns of stuff until they figured out how to get this done. Thankfully, I guess the only upside is a lot of TV shows are about to go on hiatus. It's around that time when they start, and they usually pick back up again like July, August to go back to work. But yeah, it'd be very disappointing if it does happen. I hope they work something out. I would hate to see another like slowdown similar to
that. The last thing I think any of us really want, right? My mind goes instantly to House of the Dragon season 3. I really hope they don't see a delay in that because of this. Like that's instantly when my heart starts feeling for it. Because like, season 2 is filming, and I'm not anticipating that any delays from this to that season. But season 3 is still being worked on. Oh no, I'm really hoping we avoid this. That wouldn't be good for anybody. And of course, I want writers to be fairly and accurately compensated for their contribution to Hollywood. So, fingers crossed that this is all avoided. On the other hand, though, it would be cool from a historical perspective, at least for me, who has never really I've experienced, I was alive for the 07-08 one, but by no means was I in any way conscious of what was going on back then. I did not have any idea. So kind of interested to see how that would affect things, to see it firsthand, but by no means I want that to happen.
Well, you want to see it. Yeah.
Not at all. No. It'd be interesting. Like the historian in me would be like, oh, this is like living through history here. But no.
Well, hopefully we'll have good news to report on that next week, and not bad. We can actually talk some good news, box office news. The Super Mario Brothers movie is still killing it. The box office is number 1 for the 3rd week in a row. $59.9 million this weekend. It's the highest 3rd weekend ever for an animated movie, but also the best 3rd weekend ever for a Universal title, the last being 2015's Jurassic World, which grossed $54.4 million in its 3rd weekend. Running total in the US and Canada is now at $436 million at the box office. It's cleared, I think, $872 million worldwide. It's about to make $1 billion worldwide.
On its way.
And guys, we're still waiting for that 2 sequels and a spinoff. They haven't announced it.
How has nothing been greenlit, guys? It makes no sense to me.
What's funny is that we complain about like, oh, they always rush these things, and not. We were like, why you guys have you announced like a sequel to this thing yet?
100%. You're right. It is absolutely a complaint, and because most of the time, like you said, it is rushed before. Sometimes, I'd say most of the time, studios see green and they think, oh my god, we need to put out more content. Who cares about the quality of it? But this case, like where it's making so much so fast, and it's probably you don't need to be Stephen King to write, a Mario movie. I can't believe they haven't already begun production on a sequel or something.
I know.
Like,
it's crazy.
Like, it just goes to show, like, you can never predict Hollywood. Like, it's always going to throw a curveball at you.
Yeah. It's going to be number 1 again this weekend. I think this is the first time in a while that I don't have to predict, unless you want to predict the box office for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
Now pass.
Take a break from it. But I said other box office news, Evil Dead Rise, said 25. I thought it was going to like pretty much match what remake did 10 years ago.
Right.
Close. $24.5 million. Mentioned that earlier. The cinema score, I believe, which is pretty good for horror. And a 40.1 in international start on a budget of $19 million. It actually made $23 million, but they said they had a stronger Sunday than they realized. It's $1 million on Sunday compared to the original $4.9 million that they estimated, which is pretty good to the whole team. That was supposed to be an HBO Max movie, or Max, oh no, whatever. HBO Max. I'm not calling it Max.
No, I agree.
And I think that's great. That's a great start for that.
Yeah, looking good for Evil Dead IP. Love to see that it's. Well, I mean, if you consider internationally, it's doubled its budget now already. One weekend, that's pretty fantastic. I know I'll be contributing those next week box office dollars here tomorrow when I go to see it. And I cannot wait. I remember I came in just above you. My prediction was at 26 million. Just for the.
Your Price is Right.
Price is Right. But all in all, both pretty close action. So
Yeah,
congratulations. This week belongs to you.
yeah. Thank God, finally. The question my ability to do
Congrats.
it.
Oh, hey, I mean, we've been close before.
And guys, I've been forgetting to do this, but I did not forget to screenshot some of your predictions this week. So at Film Jar said 23 million. At Film Fan 7 on Instagram said 15 million. Uh, Scream King predicted 30 million opening weekend.
Hey, we're
J-Man
ambitious.
535 predicted 18 million. Roy Kirk predicted 30 million. Hardwell 123 35 million opening weekend. Let's see, we got some more. Moses 16, 26 million. Big Bertha 1970, 15 million. So $30 million. David Park, my friend from middle school, $17 million. And then Merck at 22 million. Stack Weekend plus Mario. So hard to predict it making much more than that. So you're all kind of close for the most part.
Not too outlandish.
In the ballpark of. I want to see if there was any other significant box office news that I have to like update anyone on. Other than that, I mean, like we thought it would, because you don't even see Renfield or the Pope's Exorcist in the top 5. And Renfield dropped 59.5% in its second weekend and made $3.2 million for a running total of $13.7 million. Pope's Exorcist dropped an even bigger 62.2%, made $3.4 million for a running total of $15 million. Is Afraid in its expansion to 965 screens. Of course, because it was only playing in like 2 locations, I believe, last week before this week, is up 182.3% to $2.8 million this weekend. Yep, it's made $3.1 million overall. I've never seen this. I mean, I don't know how much more it's expanding. I mean, I think it might be expanding a bit more. So it'd be interesting to see like where or how much more money it can make from his fans and then people who are just casually curious to go see it.
Right. I'm wondering, why do you think that it was such a limited theatrical release?
Well, it's usually kind of smart to platform movie like this, like smaller movies like this, especially ones that might be a little polarizing, to like build interest instead of going wide and like kind of losing all of it in one weekend. Thinking that's what A24 chose to do with this, because it's not an easy movie to promote by any means. But yeah, I think that's kind of why they did that.
I'm surprised at those figures, that they're lower than I would have thought. So at this point, it doesn't really stand a chance of making back its budget.
So $35 million budget, unless something crazy has to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it plays in the coming weeks. And I wanted to mention this one too. I think there's enough for Dungeon, even though I didn't see it yet. My brother actually really liked it. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves only made $82.2 million here, but worldwide is now at $178 million. I think that is enough to maybe warrant like trying to build a franchise out of it. Because there's a lot of people that were like, oh, that didn't make quite as what it should here. But I think we talked about it when it opened that I think they would look at the global picture more than
it's more overseas than it had domestically. So I'd say that there's definitely appetite around the world,
an interest there. Yeah,
definitely.
So I think it's made enough to probably for them to kind of dip back into that world again.
Right.
And they can actually, I think if a sequel did get announced, I think certain people that are maybe on the fence about seeing this first one will probably be like, all right, they're going ahead with another one. Like maybe that first one, maybe I should check it out. I thought like the 90% Rotten Tomatoes would make, I mean, I know I didn't check it out. I got busy with, other stuff, but like, I thought that would make some fans or some moviegoers that were worried about it go see it out of curiosity. I think it did just enough to maybe warrant potential sequel.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that getting lit in the near future. But good for that movie, because honestly, like on paper before it had come out, I would not have had that much faith in it. So I was wrong there.
That was the March release. I was like, yeah, that was not gonna. That's not gonna do well. That won't be good.
It goes to show it's been an unpredictable first quarter of the year, but
I'm
on board for it.
Get some crow on that one, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a little. So yeah, we're gonna skip predicting this week.
Take a week off the predictions.
The one that will come after though will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because that
should be fun.
So that'll be a big one. Is there enough interest in it to make it have like a huge opening weekend? Is there Marvel fatigue? I guess we'll have to like kind of.
You know what? As much as there is Marvel fatigue, I don't know necessarily that there's Guardians fatigue yet, because the first movies are quite popular. So I think that'll be a factor, but we'll leave that for the future conversation.
Yeah. Alrighty, man.
Well,
all right.
Guys, thanks for sticking with us through episode 91 of Back to the Blockbuster. And an absolute ride. Stay tuned as we are counting down towards episode 100. We will have some more information for you guys to on our social medias, as we will have some promotions coming up. So yeah, as always, thank you for listening, guys. Those of you that enjoy our content, you guys know where to find us wherever you guys get your podcast. Tell your friends, your other movie friends that like this sort of content, where they can find us. You can find us anywhere on social media at Back to the Blockbuster, and of course, wherever you guys get your podcasts. Gaius, I'll see you shortly where we record episode 92, talk about X2. Looking forward to that, my friend. I'll see you shortly.
All right, sounds good, man. Peace.
Peace, guys.